1 second, guys. All right. Finally, I'm back home. Home meeting with you guys. Finally. Oh, let me get myself here. I'm setting up my YouTube TikTok live combo here, collab. 1 second. We're almost there. All right. Today I didn't use a background. This is my workshop. I fix motorcycles for fun. So it's all full of bikes here. All right, so like we do almost every other night, tell me why you think this statement is incorrect. Judaism is better than Christianity, Islam, atheism. Let's go for it, guys. Asher Meza live. Moving forward. I was just on a live called Jewish Topics. I just had to leave. It's so frustrating. Every time I hop into a Jewish person's live, assuming in the vast majority of cases the person doesn't know much about how Judaism functions, and I give or in this case it wasn't even my opinion. I stated what Torah law teaches and what Jewish law teaches on the topic. Of course, they have to interrupt and say, well, this is Asher Meza. Not everyone agrees with him, this and that. They just have to say something. When they can't contribute to the conversation, they have to disrupt. And in such a circumstance, just stay quiet. All right. So someone just said, okay, isn't it like kind of hard to convert to Judaism? Unfortunately, it's not the easiest thing in the world. There are definitely harder things you could do. It takes about a year. In the West, it takes about a year. In Israel, it also takes about a year. But in some places, it's not even possible because they politicize conversions. In such a case, get enough people together. We'll fly down there and convert the whole community, build you a mikveh, and take you a Sefer Torah. Okay. Someone says, I've got tattoos. Truth is, I've got tattoos also. I mean, I converted to Judaism. I wasn't born Jewish. I think I made a few videos touching on the topic of tattoos. It's not as prohibited as people think it is. According to Jewish law, the prohibition, there's actually two possible prohibitions, as really trying to explain what the Torah law prohibits. It's either using what's called the Shem Hashem, the name of God, saying like tattooing, like mamish tattooing, I am the Lord, or using the name of an avodah zarah, of an idolater, like of an idol. And that seems to be what Rabbi Akiva's opinion is. I mean, Al Pi Halacha, we go by Rabbi Akiva's opinion on it. I mean, I have to double check. But yeah, it's not such a blanket prohibition, but a simple fact that if you look online, there's many rabbis. I think Rabbi Yosef also said that cosmetic tattooing is allowed. No one is going to make such a statement like that for sure. This is in some way b'diavad, because if someone's in some sort of accident, it might help them, this and that. But no one gives you a heter to do something that's prohibited from the Torah. This is one rabbinic principle. All right, so what they're saying is that it possibly, under Safek de Rabban lehakel, it might be only prohibited rabbinically, whatever. It shows that the issue is not so clear-cut. So this is to respond to the person who says that he has tattoos. Okay, let's see. Do Muslims and Jews worship the same God? Absolutely not. I got radiation tattoos. Right. I mean, I've heard rabbis say that's also possibly not a good idea. I'm of the opinion that it's not an issue. I mean, truth is, okay, can I convert to Judaism if I'm gay? You technically can. It's not something that prohibits you from converting. I think you'd be better off not mentioning it to your rabbi. Okay, I mean, I'm just telling you, your rabbi in such a situation is not your friend. He's in some way, in the vast majority of cases, he's trying to discourage you. Right, although they're not supposed to be discouraging, unless there's a reason to. If the person sees like, hey, you're coming for the wrong reasons, then yes, that's when they should discourage you. The Rambam actually mentions this. All right, when someone comes just like stom for marriage and he doesn't care, whatever. Okay, why do Jewish people not believe Jesus is the Messiah? Mainly because we have an issue. The vast majority of Jews have an issue with claiming that God could become a man, or that the Messiah, once he comes, will in some way be killed. That's the main reason people have an issue with Jesus being the Messiah. Okay, let's see. What does rabbi mean? Rabbi literally just means teacher. It technically means more than that nowadays, because it's tied to the notion of smicha that ended in the 4th century of the Common Era, where people who had ordination going all the way back to Moses had the title rabbi. Nowadays, at least post the, I think 1536, they resurrected the title just because they needed something to call our leaders, right? Now, although in Hebrew they would call him Chacham, they would call him Mori, but fine, they resurrected the term rabbi. This is the type of smicha I have, the type of smicha I have is not a smicha going all the way back to Moshe Rabbeinu, but a smicha in some way coming from Svat around 500 years ago. So it just means teacher nowadays, colloquially. Why do my Jewish friends become fascinated with Satan? I don't know what you're talking about. What's up with that, with the Passover stuff? What about it? I don't know. Eat kitniot. It'll make your life easier. For sure, stay away from any group that doesn't eat gebruks. Okay, let's see. No, I believe in Jesus. Okay. Let's see. My God is better than your God. Well, let's talk about that. Is this really about my God is better than your God? If that's what keeps you religious, just the idea that you can embellish a notion of God in a more sophisticated manner than the next guy, then perhaps you should exit religion, not this channel. I think you have a lot to learn. The purpose of choosing a better path, it's because it'll make your life and your surroundings better. That's it. And this goes, if you're a radical Muslim and for some reason you're harming people, perhaps you should consider a more ethical path. Hold on one second. Let's go ahead and let someone in. We'll start off with your God, but my religion is more ethical than your religion, essentially.
Hey.
Hey, what's up?
I have a question for you. Did you know that Jews are very greedy and 96% of the media is controlled by the Zionist Jews? And what do you think of the silly man with the mustache, too? And I'm talking about Hilter. We're just going to refer him as Hilter in case we get banned.
So I'll tell you, it's true that Jews are disproportionately represented in the media and in Hollywood. I wouldn't say that these are religious Jews, which would really exclude me or anyone that has anything religious to say on this show. They're influential, not because there's some conspiracy. They just work hard. They typically rise to the top of any profession they're in because they're hyper-educated, because they try harder.
Do you think Jews are super greedy with money, though, and greedy for power?
So I think that the left paints anyone with money as greedy by definition. They paint anyone who believes in capitalistic ideals as greedy. So it's just kind of an image that people on the bottom typically get of people on the top. It's not. I would say that the average Jewish person gives more money. The average philanthropist, Jews are disproportionately represented in those groups as well. I mean, next time you enter any cultural arts center in your town, I'm pretty sure that there's going to be a Jewish name on the wall of who donated that center, who donated that wing in a hospital. So to say that Jews are greedy, it's actually not accurate.
Do you ever ask yourself, though, do you ever ask yourself, say, if a Jew donated something, do you think there could be a catch, though? A Jew wanting power, a Jew this or that? Like, do you ask yourself that? Maybe the Jews are...
All right, I can't. I mean, he's just not hopping. It's... I acknowledge we're disproportionately represented, okay? But if even when we're trying to do the right thing, we're doing the wrong thing, that's a definition of bigotry. That's a definition of being prejudiced. It doesn't matter how good you try, you're always going to be a piece of crap. So I don't think the average person has the patience to put up with the stuff I put up to, just because I want you guys to learn, and I want you to hear the dialogue back and forth. The more you let them talk, the more they make themselves look primitive and backwards. Okay, so keep it coming, guys. There's typically a reasonable response for the vast majority of conspiracies out there, in the vast majority of people.
How's it going?
What's up, bro? How's it going?
How's it going? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. What's up?
Well, I just came in and I was listening to you talk to the last guy who was on here, and I just wanted to touch on something that he said, maybe to help inform him. But what he doesn't realize is a lot of these Jewish people who have money, it's not like it was generational wealth, right? These people during the Holocaust lost everything. We're talking a third of the population on the planet, right? I mean, what is it? I think, if I'm not mistaken, between 1.7 and 2.2 billion people or something like that were killed during the time of the Holocaust, including the people in the war.
I think the total's around maybe 12 million.
So let's say, even on the low side, 12 million. That's 12 million people whose family did not inherit generational wealth because the
Yeah, no,
gold didn't come home with them. You know, it's not like they didn't have to work hard and earn their own living. I mean, 1945 was the end of the Holocaust. That wasn't that long ago. It's not like they had 5 or 6 generations of generational wealth that was just passed down from old Jew money. You know what I mean?
mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people look over that and don't realize, like, people had to actually come back and earn generational wealth to be able to put their people, or the people in their families, into positions to be able to have that kind of hierarchy in Hollywood and in the public eye.
No, I hear you. No, for sure. I mean, I don't like going all the way back to World War II, but just in life, if you try harder, you get better results. And people who try less, unfortunately, hate people who try more. And this is just whatever. Like, we punish achievers in this society. In the vast majority of cases, if you're poor, okay, it's because you did something wrong. In the vast majority of cases. Now, there are some injustices in the world that I wish that we could reverse, but typically, I mean, it says it in the Talmud. I mean, not that the Talmud came from God, but there's a lot of wisdom there. It says that if someone says that they tried and didn't succeed, don't believe them, because everyone who tries makes it. Now, that's not a blanket rule, but it's telling you the vast majority of cases, if you're a lazy ass, you're going to suffer on this planet. That's
No,
it.
I think that I agree with you 100%. We're rewarded with value based off of the amount of work that we put in. I think that's true in anything. It's true in the work that you do. It's true in the way you represent yourself. The more work that you put in, the more capable you are of representing yourself in a manner that's going to be valued. And but my point was that I think a lot of people don't realize that it wasn't like these people didn't work hard to get what they had.
Yeah, for
You
sure.
know, like me, I'm like, I don't know, 16% Jewish according to genealogy or whatever. I've never practiced Judaism, but I did do a lot of research on it. You know, after finding out about, like, my genealogical shit, I read about the tribe of Jude and the tribe of Dan. I read a lot about it. But what I learned by going through and reading a lot about that is people don't realize, after the Holocaust was over, there was a 10-year period where people were just coming back to society and learning how to live. And then you add the other 40 years after
I get
that,
it. I get it.
you know.
Let's not talk too much about that, because that's what gets the channel banned. But I'll tell you, I live in an Israeli neighborhood. I live in Fort Lauderdale, in a place called Hollywood. I guess it's closer to Hollywood. The vast majority of Israelis in America have a higher standard of living than the average American. So in Israel, it's very difficult to make money. Israelis come to this country with nothing. Give them 2, 3, 4 years, and they're driving Mercedes Benzes. I'm just telling you, it's because they have a work ethic. They have a work ethic, whether it's white collar, blue collar. I mean, if they're Sephardi, they're typically more like on the blue collar side, but they bust their ass. And yeah, like, my hat off to it goes off to them.
G'day guys, how are we? Sorry to interrupt you guys.
No worries.
How are we guys? All right?
I'm doing fine.
Yeah, good.
Oh, that's good. So basically, I was gonna say, why you as a Jew, why wouldn't you accept Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as the last and final messenger?
Mm-hmm.
So what's stopping you guys from accepting Muhammad when the Jewish tribes came to the land of the
I'll
date
tell you.
trees.
I'll tell you.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's not just a Rasul. I mean, he claims to be a Nabi also, right? I mean, he's not just like a messenger. He's in Judaism we say Navi. Like he claims to be a prophet. The job of the prophet in Judaism is to bring you back to the original message, not to create a new message or to in some way progress our theology, which is essentially what Muhammad did. Muhammad gave you guys a new or claimed to receive a new revelation that in some
That's
way
not.
replaced the old revelation, right? Because you guys believe that we changed the Torah. So why would we then run towards copycat religion? That's that respectfully.
Yeah. And not really, because what we believe in the millet of Ibrahim, so the nation, the religion of Abraham. So we
No, right.
believe that
But you
we
believe.
called to you guys to believe that
I'm
we
just quoting you Jewish
original.
history. See, I quoted history and you're quoting creed.
I have a
Right.
question for the channel provider. My question is, with so much genealogical research being done, there's been a large rise in the amount of people that are being labeled as Ashkenazi Jewish. What is your feeling on the Ashkenazi Jewish that come from the Ukraine, Russia, the pipeline through that area during the migrational period of people into the lower continents? Because there's
Well,
a lot of debate on whether or not these people, I mean, they're born with a Jewish mother. They're, but a lot of people won't accept them because they're Ashkenazi Jewish
I've
as
never heard.
as a Jew.
I've never heard.
A question about
Hold on.
that actually. Why is it in
Wait,
Jewish
hold on. One question at a time,
genealogy?
guy. Okay.
Sorry.
Now, it's not true that people are not accepted because they're Ashkenazi. The vast majority of Jews in America are Ashkenazi. The vast majority of Jews in Israel are Sephardi or Middle Eastern, North African,
Right.
or Spain or Portugal. I've never, if anything, Ashkenazim are accepted more because they're the wealthier Jews.
Right.
So I've never heard of someone not being accepted because they're Ashkenazi. I'm Ashkenazi. I mean, I converted to Judaism 25 years ago, but I converted to Ashkenazi. And I'll tell you, the money in the Jewish world and the scholarship, the greatest scholars in the Jewish world typically come from the Ashkenazi world, right? I mean, there's great Sephardic scholars also, but it's not a coincidence that it's Sephardic Jews who started wearing black hats and black coats and not Ashkenazi Jews who started wearing Arab attire.
Right.
They know who runs the show.
Right. I understand.
Yeah.
And I appreciate you giving me the time to talk to you. Thank you for making me feel like I'm a little more well-informed and letting me have a platform to talk to you.
No problem. Anytime. Thank you.
Have a wonderful night.
Okay, you too.
Yeah, so basically I was going to ask you, mate,
wait,
why...
hold on. I have a question for you. Now,
yeah.
Have you ever heard of the notion that you can become Jewish?
Yeah, I heard of the notion, and it was practiced before, such as few Yemenis, a lot of Yemenis during back in the day became Jewish, and yeah, you can technically be Jewish, yeah.
Okay, so you could become Jewish if you wanted to. I mean, I don't want you to think that I'm bigoted in any way and I'm defending a race or an ethnicity. I'm defending the Torah. And the Torah is available to you, my brother, if you wanted to. It might not be for you, okay? I mean, I'm not saying that you have to, clearly. I mean, just for everyone out there who thinks I'm telling people that if you don't do this, you go to hell. No, it might be for you. It might be an alternative to Islam. For you, maybe.
Okay. So I was back to the conversation. One first question is like, why is the genealogy of the Jewish people, current Jewish people, from the mother, not from the father? Because we know historically it's always been from the father. Ismail, Isaac, Yaqub, Israel, children of Israel. They were not called the children of Rebecca or etc. You know, why is that like? Why is it the swift and the change in the Jewish religion of this?
It's a good question. The truth is, genealogy, even from a rabbinic perspective, goes through the father. Jewishness, what makes you legally Jewish, that goes through the mother. But if you're from the tribe of Naphtali, Gad, Yehuda, that's going to be the factor that determines that is the pedigree of your father. However, if you happen to live in Jewish lands, what makes you liable to the punishments of the court, that determines, right, that the factor that determines that is who your mother happens to be. So it's really both. I don't know if that answers your question.
Right. So let's say if a Jewish man marries a Christian woman,
Mm.
and they have a child, that child, is he like full Jewish, or like, can you explain that? Or
He's
so,
legally Jewish. Legally Jewish. I mean, for example, are you a convert to Islam or are your parents
no,
Muslim?
I was born Muslim.
Okay. Did you have to say your Shahada again?
No.
Right. So, by the simple fact that you had Muslim parents, that got you within the religion, right? I mean, that it doesn't mean that God considers you Muslim. You still have to be devout in order to be important to God. So, someone who happens to be born of a Jewish mother, if this person doesn't believe in God, they're not part of God's people. So, it gets your foot into the door legally. That means that if they lived in biblical Israel, the way biblical Israelites counted citizenship was on who the mother was. Citizenship, what made you liable to the punishments and the laws of that land. In terms of what makes you part of spiritual Israel, ambassadors of God on this planet, that is completely by belief, which is why you could convert to Judaism not having one drop of Jewish blood. However, what tribe you belong to, that goes to your father. That's it. Now, if
Right.
you're a convert like me and you have no Jewish relatives, you're basically allowed to live in any land or any part of Israel, just like Levites, because Levites were also, although they were a tribe, they didn't have an ancestral portion of Israel, so they were able to live anywhere. But God doesn't care about blood. I mean, God cares about ethics and
Right.
beliefs and how those beliefs impact your behavior.
Right. So yeah, I understand. Yeah. Thank you so much for answering the question. I was going to ask you another question too. So,
Go for it,
who
man.
do you? So, do you guys believe that was it Ismail or was it Isaac who was about to get sacrificed? Like, what do you guys believe in?
So our Bible says that it was Isaac.
Right. Was it in the Torah or Talmud?
The Torah. It's in the Torah.
Okay.
But that's the portion that Muslims claim that we changed.
Yeah. What we believe is that you guys added extra to the book.
That's fine.
Yani,
You know,
that's what.
it's not so much of an issue. You know why? Because the part that Muslims claim that we added has nothing to do with laws. What they believe that
Right.
we changed the narrative, but the laws are the same, and Muslims still don't keep all those laws. For example, you guys could eat camel and you could eat rabbit. You don't really rest on the Sabbath. There's a lot of things
Yeah.
due to
The thing is,
yeah.
because what we believe in entirely is to keep Abraham, that we have the Abrahamic laws, that because our covenant is different now. So the covenant is swifted to the whole mankind. Before it was a covenant between the Jewish tribes, and then between, I mean,
That's a misconception.
Asian.
Well, that's a misconception that Muslims believe. Judaism was universal from its inception. That means if you were not a descendant of Abraham, you could still join the Jewish people and be counted essentially like an Israelite. On Mount Sinai, which is what made us special to God, us accepting the commandments, it says that they were a mixed multitude of peoples on that mountain, along with Hebrews. And the rabbis are adamant that there were actually more of these non-Hebrews than Hebrews, and they all accepted the Torah. It's a beautiful thing. So it shows that Muhammad was wrong because his point was to in some way discredit Judaism as a race-based ethno-religion when is not. It is not.
But he never claimed that, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Because back then there was Arabs who became Jewish through the relationship with the Jewish tribes. So there was ethnic in Arabia. There was ethnic Jews, and there was converts, right? And then the Jewish community would only accept the big people in the, so basically tribal elders and stuff like this as new converts. Yeah. So that's.
That community may have been corrupt, right? I mean, Jews aren't perfect, just like Muslims aren't perfect. Yeah, but that doesn't speak for the religion itself. I mean, the religion tells us to welcome anyone who's sincere. So yeah.
Yeah. So really, the thing is, it's like what they used to back in that community. They used to threaten the Arabs with like, there's going to be a prophet that will come, and then he's going to be the slayer of the Arabs or whatever it may be. But I was going to ask you, so what do you think about the prophecy in Isaiah? So I was going to ask you about what do you think about it, and what do you think about the prophet coming from your brethren, from the Ishmaelites? What do you think? Do you think there's any notion in the Bible that there's going to be a prophet that comes from the lineage of Ishmael?
So the understanding is that our prophets, after the Torah was given, have to be Israelites. They have to come from Israel. Now, they could convert to Judaism. We believe that Obadiah, the prophet Obadiah, was a convert. He was an Edomite convert. And this is what it means, that I will raise up for you a prophet like me, i.e., Moses is speaking from among your brothers. I know Muslims understand that differently. Jews always understood that prophets have to come from Israel. It doesn't really matter where you come from, because you could become Jewish like this, according to Jewish law. Nowadays, they politicize the whole system, and they make it take years. So the idea that a prophet is going to come from a irreligious nation, now assuming the Ishmaelites are not religious people, because it seems, according to the narrative that we see in the Torah, Ishmael made up with his brother Isaac when they buried Abraham. So the understanding is that they, in some way, were absorbed into Israel. Nowhere in the Torah, nowhere in the Bible, does it say that the Ishmaelites became Arabs. It doesn't say that. There were some Jewish traditions floating around, especially in the time of Muhammad that taught this, right? The notion of Ishmaelim, or it's called Atifat Ishmaelim. Every morning, we wrap the tallis around their head, like Arabs would do, and Ishmaelim are in some ways synonymous with Arabs in Talmudic literature, but it appears nowhere like this in the Torah, or for sure in Tanakh. So why did God send us a prophet, assuming the Ishmaelites were not God-fearing people, from a nation that didn't follow God? It just doesn't make any sense.
Basically, but the thing is, there's a land in the Arabian desert, and the Arabian desert has been mentioned in the Bible, the Old Bible, especially Isaiah. It mentions the lands of the Arabs, right? And it's clear that
I don't
Ishmael
think
was
Arabs
left.
appear in the Bible. I mean, the word Arab.
Arabian desert.
I mean, for sure that word doesn't appear. If you give me a word, I'll look it up, and I'll have an answer next time, because I'm curious what
Yeah,
word.
Isaiah 41. If
What's
you
it
go
called?
through Isaiah 41, I believe. So if you believe, just read through the passages of Isaiah, and it's talking about how there's going to be from the Ishmaelites, from the Arabian desert, and then it's talking about a whole prophecy of a prophet.
All right, I'll check it out. I mean, I'm not going to do it now, but I promise I'll look it up.
Yeah.
Isaiah 41.
Have you read Quran before? Or just
Not.
curious.
I mean, I've read portions of it.
Read Surah Al-Baqarah. So that's mostly talking about the Jews, and because the Quran always brings up in Surah Al-Baqarah how much favors he gave to the children of Israel, and how much he favored them from amongst all the worlds, and basically calling them towards, like, this is the same thing from the Lord. This is just a confirmation of the earlier scriptures, and obviously now it's a global, it's for everyone. But just do some research. Maybe you should. It's not going to hurt you to learn more about a religion.
No, I hear you. I mean, I'm all for it. I'm all for learning.
Yes, both of us we believe in one God, right? With no idols, no face, no
That's
like
true. But we've also
physical.
believe in one God. I don't believe it's the same God, but
Why is that?
because the way you know what God you believe in is what that God expects you to do. So our gods expect us to do different things. I mean, the Torah tells you to do one thing, the Quran tells you to do something else. It can't be the same God. I mean, I believe that you worship one God, but only because we both worship one God doesn't mean that we worship the same God, which is fine. I mean, heck, you could worship a different God and still have impeccable behavior. That means that you could still be ethical. I mean, it doesn't have to be the same God. I know it's a talking point of Islam that it's the same God, but I don't. I mean, it's more of a.
I tell you why it's the same God, because it's the same name, Allah, Allah, Allah. Or that's the original name for God in your language, isn't it? Allah.
Not necessarily. I mean, that's not his name.
And
You mean Aloha, which is really where I think Allah comes from. It just means, I mean, God is not God's name. It doesn't really matter to me, but God, it just means powerful one. I mean, his
yeah,
name for Hebrews is the Yud Ke Vav Ke, I guess I'll say Yud He, I'll make it,
yeah. So
and then Vav He or Wah He. Fine.
yeah, I was gonna say, because both are the same God. He expects us to pray, right? Expects us to fast. Expects us to do everything. We even fast on the same day of when Moses,
Yeah.
the children of Israel, were saved from
You're
the
not far
Pharaoh.
off, my brother. I mean, you're not far off, but I mean, I can't say it's the same God, and I can't say that our King David was the same King David that you believe in, or Jesus in the New Testament is the same Jesus you believe in. It's just because your biblical characters behave differently. They're in some way perfect. I mean, they don't make mistakes. Ours do. So it can't be the same people. I mean, I think that you guys like
I don't want.
appropriate like our people, which
Sorry
is
to
fine.
interrupt you,
Yeah.
but because we believe that the prophets do make mistakes, but we don't believe it's the same mistakes as what you guys portray as, such as like Noah, Lot, what with the Torahs, and things like this, and genealogy. Like the whole obsession with genealogy, and the Quran actually frees the prophets from a lot of the things that the people lied upon them. We believe that Yunus of Metta, or do you know Prophet Yunus? What do you call him?
No, I don't know who Eunice is.
From Mosul, from bin Metta.
I mean, so much about Islamic messengers or prophets.
No, it's the one who's swallowed by the whale.
Oh, Jonah. Jonah.
In Jonah, yeah. So we believe in all. He was blameworthy for what he done. So he done a mistake there. What he did, he left without permission of God from his people, right? And
Okay.
he got swallowed by the whale, or the big fish.
Fish, right?
Yeah. So basically, that's all I've got to say. Lovely speaking to you, mate. I'm gonna chuck you a follow. See you later. Have a good night. I mean, day here, or whatever it may be, because it's daytime here. All right. See you later, mate.
Wait.
Have a nice one.
Before you go, real quick, I just have a side question that has nothing to do with what we just spoke
Here
about.
you go. Picking
Because
a fight, Alibaba.
no. I'm not picking a fight at all. I'm actually asking a
Get them
question.
out.
Yasin, Pashtun. I have a question. Are you by any chance like Afghani from the Pashtun?
Yeah. I'm Afghan, Pashtun. Yes.
By any chance, do you follow the Patanwali?
Well, it's not really. I'm Australian. I'm more of Aussie, right? So I
Oh,
don't really
okay.
do the customs and traditions, really. Yeah. Why is that?
No. I was just curious because I had seen a documentary on like Patanwali and stuff like that. So I just wanted to ask you just as a side note.
Yeah, no. A lot of there's actually a thing going on that we are lost tribes of Israel. I don't know if that's true.
Yeah, I heard that claim as well.
Yeah, I heard that claim from that because the tribes, the names are very close.
Yeah.
My tribe name's Abran. I don't know. The names, they've got very similarities to the children of Israel.
Yeah, I saw that one of the tribes was like Efriti and something else like that. But yeah,
Yes.
so
Frida, Zazai, all these places.
yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, see you later, guys.
All right, bro.
Have a nice night. See ya. Bye.
All right.
Dímelo, Alibaba.
Hola, ¿cómo está, papa?
Así la lucha. Sí. Mix it up there. Okay. Yeah, I'm not a fan of this whole. Well, let's in some way comb the earth. We're looking for people with Jewish blood. I think that's completely backward, primitive, racist, bigoted. There's this
I agree.
like rabbi. I mean, his name is Laser Brody. You probably know him. He's a musician also. So, I mean, he wrote an article. I saw it online. It shows like the Pashtuns. It shows like a picture of like a Pashtuni guy in Afghanistan, and next to it, it says "good Jewish boy." This is stupid. I mean, these guys are Muslim, which is fine. I mean, I have tons of respect for the ethics of, or how ethical Islam can make someone. All right, but to just, I mean, single someone out who doesn't care about your religion, give them special treatment when there are thousands of people knocking down the door of Judaism trying to get in, and you're spitting in their face.
I agree.
Just like, nah. I mean, it's just, these people have a broken moral compass. They separate the world tribally and not ethically, and they don't speak for the. It's completely antithetical to the Torah. I mean, the Torah says that if you do such and such, you're cut off. Lecharet, you're cut off from my people. But suddenly, good Jewish boy. I mean, someone who doesn't even believe in God. There's this group in India called the Bnei Menashe. So the Bnei Menashe weren't Jewish when they were found. They were practicing local religions. A lot were Christian, but because they claimed to have Jewish blood, the state of Israel allowed them to move to Israel. You know how stupid that sounds,
Yeah,
right?
it sounds
When
very
they
stupid.
make it impossible, like for converts to make Aliyah, it's just stupid. And they do it for like PR reasons. Like, oh, look, like not all Jews are white, right? But it's just so
Yeah.
stupid. It's like, I'll deal with that stupidness.
I mean, yeah. But they also kind of let a lot of Russian and Ukrainian Jews come in. That some of them we know for a fact forged papers, and they were really Christians on the low, but they let them just walk in.
Yeah, you know why, right? Because they hold the values that Israel likes to promote.
Yep.
They virtually all serve in the military. You're not going to find them protesting anything like for a religious cause because they're typically atheistical. They're very cultured and into the arts. They all play some sort of musical instrument, right? And that's what they want. They don't want religious people moving there, like in some way voting for left-wing party, like for right-wing parties. It's when I made Aliyah, if you were making Aliyah from the former Soviet Union, they gave you a double sal klita, like a double absorption basket, because every month they would give us for like a new ole, but they would give them around $250 a month per person, and if you lived in an absorption center, like you didn't have to pay rent, which I didn't because I made Aliyah with the dog, and they don't accept dogs in these absorption centers, right? But if you made Aliyah from Russia, they'd give you double because that's what they wanted to promote. And whatever. I mean, I don't care. I don't know. If you're a good person, you're a good person, but I don't want people to think that there isn't a double standard in Israel, because for sure there is. Okay. So let's go to these questions. Okay, it's a commandment taken out of context. So laws are supposed to be on our minds like frontlets. Okay. Okay. I think, I'm not sure what this guy's talking about, but the Rashbam actually says, but there's two portions in the Torah that talk about tefillin, the whole totafot benenecha, right? I mean, it's supposed to be like an ot. Doesn't always mean, according to the Rashbam, like mamish tefillin. That one of the portions he specifically says that is completely allegorical, that it's poetic and symbolic, and that tying it to your arm and to your heart, keeping it between your eyes, it's supposed to be like you're internalizing the mitzvot, not necessarily that you have to make tefillin. He's not saying that we don't have a halacha to put on tefillin. He's just saying that the literal command as it appears in the Torah doesn't point to that. I mean, if Chazal make a command, you have to do it. The problem nowadays, the nosedive that Judaism has taken academically teaches them that for you to be bound to keep Jewish law, you have to believe that it was all given to Moses on Mount Sinai, which is the stupidest.
Yeah, that's very
It
stupid.
appears nowhere like this, but this is what people think. They're like, you don't believe the oral laws from Mount Sinai, right? Well, the vast majority of rabbis throughout history didn't believe that. Some portions they believed, but not the vast majority of them. The vast majority were developed by the court, but they don't know that. I don't know. All right, welcome Naked Truth, and welcome Zoger.
That's my name.
Zoger. Okay, I'm sorry. Welcome.
Yeah, I just going through the live and shit, and I saw that what you were talking about.
Yeah.
And all I just wanted to say was that you're completely right, and you're sexy as hell.
Woo! Thank you. welcome, Papi. What's up?
Okay.
Come on, keep
Ooh.
coming. That's what's up. That's what's up.
I can't.
Genuine. Look, it looks like that. Ah, man, you're all talk, player. Come on.
No, I'm
I thought
Jewish
you were
though, so
top G.
I am Jewish and I am a top G. So just want to say thank you for the support. I love you, bro. You're sexy. I'm flying you out plane right now. I'm rich as hell. I have a private plane, so your
Hop in the
flight
Bugatti.
tomorrow is at 8 p.m. and we'll have dinner. You'll probably land here around like 10 or something. It's a
Okay, what
2 hour
color
flight.
is your Bugatti?
What?
What color is your Bugatti?
Oh, my Bugatti is pink.
Woo.
Oh, and I have a Bugatti that's orange.
All right, guys. All right. All right, let's keep the jokes to a minimum. But thank you. I mean, thank you for blessing us with your presence here.
All right, can you
All right. Enough jokes for today. Yeah. No, but the setup was good. I mean, that guy planned this out. He thought it. Yeah, but I feel bad. I mean, I feel like I'm not the only one that I mean, he does. All right, welcome, Rhino.
Hi.
Hi. What's a good word? What color is your Bugatti?
My Bugatti. I don't know.
Oh.
I would like to ask you a question.
I can't hear you very well. I mean, could you speak?
I would like to ask you a question.
Okay. All right. Yeah, go ahead.
Now the concept is that no man shall die for another man's sins.
Mm.
And yet still today we are cast out from the presence of God. We're still suffering and being punished for the sins that Adam and Eve committed. So what do you say about that?
Ben, I mean, your audio is terrible. I mean, I can't really hear what you're saying.
Rob, basically what he said was, if the Tanakh says, well, one man shall not be punished for another man's sins, why is it that till today we're still paying for the sin of Adam and Eve? That's
Okay. So, truth be told, the statement I believe is in Ezekiel chapter 14, possibly, that's not talking about spiritual matters. I mean, it's speaking about legality. I'm not trying to justify with the idea that someone could suffer for someone's sins, but there is a bit of hypocrisy in the Jewish world, because they make fun of that statement and they're like, "Oh, that's primitive. It makes no sense." But why do Jews nowadays claim to be Jewish and special to God just because they happen to have a great grandfather who accepted Torah in their behalf on Mount Sinai? So if people can't suffer for someone else's mistakes, how can you benefit because of someone's good ideas or good choices? So with the idea of vicarious suffering or vicarious merit are both primitive ideas in my perspective, and I think it's a primitive idea from a Torah perspective. Now, the idea in terms of the curse that man is under, I have no response to that. It's a good question. It's a good question that the fall of man, and Jews typically don't use that word, but the idea that it was Adam first who broke that covenant, that contract between man and God, and because of that, women are in some way, they have to give they give birth in pain, and men have to live by the sweat of their brow. I get it. It makes sense. I don't think that justifies, that's before things began to make sense, i.e., after the Torah was given, is when law and order entered humanity from a divine perspective. From Adam all the way to Exodus chapter 20 is essentially man trying to figure out things on his own. And I believe that's what it means, that you're going to try to live by the sweat of your brow. That means you're going to have to try to figure things out on your own because you thought that you can be ethical without God. And this is what the prophecy means, in my opinion, of Genesis chapter 3. Genesis chapter 3 is prophesying Mount Sinai. Right? I mean, Judaism teaches, or many rabbis teach, that the snake in the garden was the Yetzer Hara, like the evil inclination. And it's saying that this evil inclination is going to rise up again, right? Basically telling you that you can be ethical without God, but the time's going to come, i.e., after I give you the Torah, that you're going to be equipped to now crush the head of this serpent, of this evil inclination, because you will no longer have to try to figure out ethics on your own because you'll have it right in front of you with the Torah. If not, Mount Sinai appeared out of nowhere. So it's definitely a good question.
I would like to further ask the another question about Isaiah 53, making the connection that about the suffering servant.
Yeah.
Now, Jews and Muslims, they believe that Israel is the suffering servant. So that concept about no man shall die for another man's sin, it's a contradiction.
Not necessarily. Hold on. Okay. Dying for another man's sins in Hebrew appears the same as dying because of somebody's sins. That means dying for someone's sins could also be translated that you're basically suffering because of the mistakes that person made or because that person made you suffer. So it's no secret that when God sends prophets to wicked Israel, Israel is going to make them suffer, which means that this prophet is going to, in some way, suffer because of Israel. Isaiah 53, in my opinion, is the song of the martyrs, of all the messengers that God sent to Israel who were made to suffer. In particular, I believe it's talking about Isaiah. Jewish tradition teaches us that Isaiah himself was killed, just like many of the other prophets. If you believe that Jesus is a prophet, he wouldn't be excluded from this. I don't know if he was a prophet, but if you did, I welcome you to include him in the mix, because it's telling us that if you try to be an outlier, if you try to do the right thing, people who in the vast majority of cases are not tempered by Torah ethics are going to make you suffer. That's what Isaiah 53 is talking about. And I think this rendition of Isaiah 53 is a lot more ethical and meaningful than just to say that it's talking about one man named Jesus.
I would like to say that Israel don't have the monopoly on suffering. I mean, just look at the Turkish earthquake. So
I didn't say that. Wait, hold on. I don't believe that Isaiah 53, that the suffering servant in Isaiah 53 is Israel. I don't believe that. Okay. There's many opinions in the rabbinic world that contradict that idea, only because someone named Tovia Singer quotes one opinion, which, off the top of my head, is the opinion of the Radak. People think that it's unanimous that Jews believe that the suffering servant in Isaiah 53 is Israel. I don't believe it's Israel. Now, I believe Isaiah himself was part of Israel. And one could say that all the prophets are part of Israel. So if the prophets are being made to suffer by wicked Israel, because this is what he says in 2 chapters before, that he's going to use Israel to bring back Israel. The messengers of God, I mean, Jesus himself was Israel. I mean, one could say that if you believe Isaiah 53 is talking about Jesus and Jesus was part of Israel, then it's still talking about Israel. But I don't believe it's Israel as a whole, because I think according to the Torah, in the vast majority of cases, when Israel suffers, it's their fault. It's their fault as a punishment from God himself. Now, there are instances where the nations go too far. Absolutely. Okay. But what's more likely? The trend in the Torah is that God punishes Israel for Israel's sins. So it's hard for me to believe, as Tovia Singer teaches, that it's the nations of the world saying how bad they feel for mistreating Israel. This is a Kabbalistic notion. The Kabbalistic notion is that every time Israel suffers, it's because Gentiles hate Jews, right? What's the phrase in the Talmud? Esav l'sonei Yaakov, and that Esav like inherently hates Jacob. I don't believe that.
Can I just say another thing is, now let's get back to the salvation plan.
Sure.
to get back to the presence of God.
So we're part of
What
South
is the
Africa from?
because some people say you have to keep this in the Torah in perfect. You have to keep the laws and Sabbaths and all that stuff. And some
Only
say it's through Jesus. So what is the salvation plan to get back to the presence of God?
okay, but so only Christians teach that you have to keep it perfectly. God wants you to do your best. Every time the word salvation is used in the Torah, it's talking about an earthly salvation, being saved from occupation, from exile, from starvation. Um, that, that's what it means in the Torah. Then later on, they exile became hell and redemption became heaven. So there is no salvation plan in the Torah. We believe that if we keep God's commandments, God's going to take care of us. All it tells us is that he's going to write us in a book. That's the most it tells us. It seems that God wants us to do the right thing for the sake of doing the right thing. You should want to follow God, not just because you don't want to go to hell or because you want to like chill in a palace in heaven, but because you want to leave this planet a little better than you found it for your children. That's the main reason you should follow God. And this is what the Torah says, that if you keep my word, you will have rain in its season, you'll see your children grow old, and you'll have peace. But for some reason, that's not enough for people nowadays. Now you have to scare them into being religious or give them incentives. I think that's part of the dumbification of religion nowadays.
That doesn't answer the question. Is that we want to be back in the presence of God. Maybe that is our heaven, but how do we get there? And yeah, answer. You can
I'm
answer,
telling you,
sir.
I have no urge to be in the presence of God. I don't. I mean, I rather see my loved ones who passed away. I want to see good people thrive and in some way make this world a little better. I don't know what human being could honestly say that he has an itch, an urge to in some way just hang out with God, a God they never really met. Right? I mean, I have to be honest. I appreciate God because his word has made this world a better place. His Torah has been an ethical net gain. I appreciate him for that. I could say that I love God for that. But to say that I just want to be in his presence, it seems like it's a lot of lip service and it's embellishing the idea and it makes us look primitive to people who don't believe in God.
The fact is that we are like kindergarten. We are without a teacher. And the world, that is why the world is so in chaos. We blame this government and that people and that race for wars and stuff like that. We are in a kindergarten and we are without the presence of God. That is my point.
Wait.
So we need God.
Why do you need his presence if you already have his laws? That means anything that he has to tell you, he already told you, but you chose not to keep those laws and await for some, like for the time when you'll no longer be alive, which means that you'll be socially irrelevant, you'll be in heaven, and just like dwelling in his presence when you didn't take the opportunity to keep his laws when you were alive on earth. It just seems like kind of a waste of potential, of ethical potential. You should start keeping God's laws today. I challenge you to go to your local synagogue this Shabbat and try to learn from Jews. See what they do, because they're the only ones keeping the God's word today as it appears in the Bible. Right? I mean, Christians in some way pick and choose. So I'm not trying to get you to drop Jesus. I'm trying to get you more to be more Torah observant.
Yes, I do keep the laws. And the Ten Commandments is basically to love your God and to love your neighbor. We are
There's
all
13
linked
commandments.
together.
There are 613
Excuse me?
commandments. So what part of South Africa are you from?
Cape Town.
Where?
Cape Town.
Ah, I've been there. I've been to Cape Town. I went to Rondebosch, and I went to the Sea Point Synagogue, Sea Point, and Table Mountain, and I went to the Garden Synagogue, and I
Okay.
what else? So the market, Greens Market, and I went on a big Ferris wheel. I love Cape Town. I love Cape Town.
My next question is this is actually also for the Muslims that the sign of a prophet of a high prophet actually, or a high priest. Basically is the 40-day fast that Moses did and Elijah did and even Jesus did, a 40-day and night fast. What do you think about that? The true sign of a prophet.
If that was the true sign of a prophet, then the vast majority of prophets that appear in the Bible were false prophets because they didn't do that. I mean, where does it say that Ezekiel fasted for 40 days? I don't, the job of the prophet is essentially to be a mouthpiece for God, not to give you any new message, because Moses said that we can't add or take away from God's word, but to bring you back to God's original message. By them speaking for God, meaning that they're reminding you what God told you, just to return to that initial system. Who cares about who, anyone could fulfill that role. In the vast majority of cases, when we're reading the prophets in the Bible, we already know what they're going to say, right? Let me see. Israel's worshiping idols. Oh, yeah, you're going into exile, right? I mean, you're going to be sold for less than the price of a horse. This is not, such a mind-blowing
Yes, I agree
idea.
with you there.
What?
Don't change the message. I agree with you. Don't change the message.
Mm-hmm.
That is basically they're just trying to bring the Israel on the right track, the prophets. So they shouldn't change the message.
Well,
Am I right?
like claiming that God will not validate your religiosity unless you accept a human sacrifice done in your behalf is in some way changing the message, I think.
I don't. You see, if you in the Old Testament, there's prophecies that had to be fulfilled, like Isaiah 53, and you also get
I don't consider those prophecies.
Excuse me.
I don't consider those prophecies. Any of these statements, or the vast majority of these statements that people call messianic prophecies, are not prophecies at all. I mean, they're prophecies that Christians thought were prophecies, and then Jews felt like they had to respond. I don't feel I have to respond because I don't consider them to be prophetic. But there's other people who want to talk. But
right.
I mean, thank you for stopping by. You could hang out for a little while. But yeah. Anyways, thank you. All right.
Okay.
Welcome. Have fun, Tazar Rasu.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Hello, Rabbi. Much
Hi.
respect to you and your religion. Thank you for having me.
I mean, you're starting off on the right foot. Like grease the host a little bit. Thank you.
Okay. I've been wondering why you want to talk to me first, because there are other people, but thank you very much. So I have this question. If you would like to, if you give permission to ask the question, please.
Go ask whatever you want. Go ahead.
Okay, so I was in the other live stream, and there is like someone from the Muslim come to the live stream and start talking about the Muhammad name in the other scriptures. One of them is on the Jewish scripture. It is like, wait, I have my notes here. It is from the Torah, the Deuteronomy 18:18. Yes, so I go here to learn if it is like what is from the side of the Jewish. What is this claim from the side of the Jewish? Is it true, or what is it about?
Deuteronomy chapter 18. What do Jews think you're talking about?
Deuteronomy 18, chapter 18 and 18.
Okay. Well,
the verse number 18.
It's really the whole chapter. I mean, you can't pick and choose like one verse there, because then the whole chapter is disposable. So the chapter teaches like this: when you begin to emulate the nations of the world, God will raise up for you a prophet. There's only one chapter in the whole Bible that commands us to listen to prophets. One chapter. Which chapter? Deuteronomy chapter 18. If Deuteronomy chapter 18 is not speaking about prophets in general, then God will not hold it against you for not listening to Ezekiel, Jeremiah, Isaiah, Nahum, Ovadia, on and on. And how do we know it's talking about prophets in general? Because after he says, I will raise up for you a prophet, and then he says, and the prophet that does not speak what I instruct him. Oh, wait a minute. First he says, I will raise up for you a prophet. And then it says, and the prophet, it's going into the plural. That means he's talking about prophets in general. Contextually is saying that when I raise up for you prophets in different instances, because at that time wasn't the only time that Israel sinned. Israel sinned throughout their history. This means that when Israel begins to sin, God's going to send them prophets. And the prophet that doesn't speak what God commands him, then God's going to hold it against them. So this is teaching us to listen to prophets when God sends them to us. That's what Deuteronomy chapter 18 is talking about.
So this is not particularly talking about one prophet.
Nope.
It is talking about many potential prophet that will come.
Correct. And if you believe Muhammad is a prophet, then it would include Muhammad. And if you believe Jesus is a prophet, it would include Jesus. Because this is the only chapter. Can you tell me what other chapter in our Bible tells us to listen to prophets in general? But Deuteronomy chapter 18? I mean, people don't ask this question because they don't read things in context typically. Here, look, you're not alone. Christians believe it's talking about Jesus. Muslims believe it's talking about Muhammad. Mormons believe it's talking about Joseph Smith. So it's not it's not a new idea that it's possibly talking about one person. But just Jews don't understand it like that necessarily.
Okay. Hi. I mean, just a quick word on this passage, but I have a different question since the gentleman, talked about Deuteronomy 18:18. The thing is, it says a prophet like Prophet Moses. There isn't any other prophet in the entire Bible that is like Prophet Moses, since Prophet Moses was a lawbringer. You see,
Hold on. It says a prophet like me.
Yeah, I will.
From among, wait, hold on. It says a prophet like me from among your brothers, as I am from among your brothers.
Right, from among your brethren. He's already talking to the Israelites. He's already.
Hold on. Oh, wait.
Yeah.
Everyone who's listening there, right? Everyone who's listening, either, even though they didn't begin as Israelites, ended up as Israelites. There was a mixed multitude of people who were absorbed into the people of Israel, right? It makes no sense. I mean, even according to the text, that this in some way includes Amalekites, Moabites. It makes no sense. It says, like I am from amongst your brothers. I mean, are you trying to say because Ishmael was the brother of Isaac that it includes Ishmael? And first of all, I mean, even to make that claim, you'd have to claim that Ishmael is truly the father of the Muslims, which is fully an Islamic idea and not an idea that comes from the Torah.
Okay, so can you mention a prophet like Moses in the Bible that was a lawbringer, other than?
No. Okay, so Moses himself says that he's the only one allowed to bring the law. That you can't take away from the law that's been transmission through him. Okay, like Moses means from amongst your brothers as I am from amongst your brothers, meaning that prophecy is limited to Israelites after the Torah was given. I mean, that's the most reasonable understanding. I mean, to assume, because then pagans could in some way, like we could incorporate pagan prophets into our belief system after the Torah was given. Right? I know it's convenient, like for you to say it's Muhammad, but what if an Amalekite, right? Because Amalekites are also descendants of Abraham.
Did they bring a law?
What?
Amalekites, were they a law-bearing nation? Did they bring a law, a universal law for mankind to follow? And plus, do you also
give them time? Give them time. I mean, Islam is just 20 years old. I'm sure there's some Amalekites in Washington, D.C., like who want to reestablish, I mean, this corrupt global network. Yeah, I mean, only because they haven't done it yet, doesn't mean that your interpretation doesn't in some way encourage them to do so, right? It's a very loose, dangerous interpretation. There's a reason why it limited prophecy to people who accepted the Torah, i.e. Israel, right? Because Israel is a concept. Even in its inception, it was universal in nature. If you believed in God, if you wanted to accept his laws and walk in his ways, you became Israel. why would it include people who weren't sensitized by the laws? Amalekites, Moabites, in your opinion, Ishmaelites, because you believe that you're a descendant of Ishmael, but nowhere, it doesn't tell us that Ishmael became a righteous individual. I mean, it just doesn't, like.
Did God make any promises to Ishmael? Did he make any promises in the Torah? He says, oh, that Abraham prayed to God, oh, that Ishmael may live before thee. And God replied, he said, I've heard you, and I have blessed Ishmael, and I will exceedingly multiply him, and he will be fruitful, and his descendants will be like the stars in the heavens. Right? This was one promise. The other,
No, wait, hold on.
It does.
Right, it doesn't say that. You're thinking about Hagar. That when Hagar
no,
was
Hagar is the mother of Ishmael.
no,
Yeah.
and you said Abraham,
Okay,
and
yeah. The first covenant, because this promise was repeated several times. The first covenant, the covenant of circumcision, was made when Ishmael was the only son of Abraham. Isaac was not yet born, and this covenant took place. So Ishmael is very much part of the covenant. Is part of the circumcision. Am I overstating this?
no, I mean it's possible that he was circumcised.
Okay,
So
what did
anything
that?
that goes, wait, hold on. I mean, I think that argues for the Jewish position that he joined Israel and not in some way broke off and created an Arab belief system.
No. But I'm saying the covenant, first time, the covenant that God made with Abraham and his household, and the only son that was alive was there was Ishmael. Isaac
Yeah,
like 14.
argument. Hold on, that's not the first. You have to make the connection between Islam and Ishmael. Okay, Ishmael.
Yeah.
Not only was Ishmael possibly circumcised, his servants were also circumcised. But
Right. That's fine.
Eliezer ben Eved Avraham also was circumcised. All
But
right.
Ishmael was his flesh and blood.
But who cares?
Born.
We're not making the link between you and Ishmael.
No, because we are the spiritual descendants of Abraham.
And you believe that in faith. You believe that in faith because our Bible doesn't say that. Now, you could become it like how I became it if you convert to Judaism. But what you're telling me is creed. What I'm telling you is what the Bible says, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
but I'm referring to Genesis, to the Torah, to the Bible. What I'm saying, what was that covenant that God made with Abraham?
Okay. No.
Okay,
So
this was
the circumcision is not the covenant. The circumcision is the sign of the covenant.
Right. And that was an everlasting covenant, and Muslims today even circumcise even to do it.
I know, but
Yes, but you're not understanding something. It said it was an everlasting covering between Abraham and his seed and his people. Ishmael broke off. Ishmael left. That's why when how you call it, Sarah wanted Hagar and Ishmael out, what did God say? Do what your wife says. And then Abraham pleaded for his son. Well, and that's why God said he would bless him and he will be okay and he'll become a leader of many nations and 12 kings will come out from Ishmael and stuff like that. But that is a separate thing. That's not the covenant that he made with Israel.
Yeah, what was the first? I'm asking, what was the covenant that God made to Abraham? What were the promises of the covenant, and what would be like the statutes of the covenant? I'll give it to you here.
no,
That
I'll
you
tell you. It's in chapter 12. Hold on one second. Okay, first you have to make the connection because I don't like throwing Ishmael under the bus. I think, hey, there's a rabbi in our Talmud called Rabbi Ishmael. Okay, I mean, many people thought that he became part of Israel. I mean, himself, right? You first have to make the connection with Ishmael, like before you embellish the idea that he became the parent of Muslims. Okay, that connection is not made. That's the missing link. Okay, so what are you arguing then?
no, the point is the name Ishmael was given by God Himself, and Hagar is the only woman mentioned in the Bible who saw God, right? And God spoke to Hagar, and then according to the Islamic tradition, they settled in Bakka. What is the old name for Makkah is Bakka.
Yeah,
That's
but
still
Islam. Okay, it doesn't. Okay,
okay. So,
the
so
issue.
anyways,
I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt.
okay.
Say that
Anyways, so,
Ishmael
yeah.
is
So,
the father of the Muslims. Regardless, our Torah says don't add to it. What Muhammad, as possibly being a descendant of Ishmael, should have done was point all the Arabs to the Torah that was also universal in
so
nature. But he broke the Torah by creating a new belief system.
Here's a small passage in the Quran. It says, "O Muhammad, we have revealed to you as we revealed to Noah and the prophets after him, and we revealed to Abraham, Ishmael, Isaac, Jacob, and the offspring of Jacob, and Jesus and Job and Jonah, and Aaron and Solomon, and we
This is
gave."
your Bible. I mean,
Huh?
only Muslims believe in this. What's the point of quoting it? You know
No, no,
what? You
yeah,
think that by people hearing the Quran, they're magically going to convert. I mean, it
no, no,
sounds a bit irrational. I don't do that with the Torah, by the way. I don't quote the Torah thinking that, you know what, the Torah has a power that just by hearing the words alone is going to draw people closer to God. I think I'd be embarrassed and I'd cringe, right? I mean, if I saw someone else do that, like I'm cringing now, okay? Make logical arguments. There's no point of
right.
like,
Our primary argument is that God sent prophets and messengers to mankind, and Israelites being one of them, among them. The
mhm.
thing is, to us, Jews were Muslims. Okay, later on, they that began to identify themselves as Jews. They were Muslim. Abraham was Muslim. They were
As a descriptive term, and Jews hardly call themselves Jewish. It depends what part of the world you live in. There's societies nowadays that still call Jews Hebrews. I think
okay.
in Russian, right? I mean, the word is Hebrew. It's not really Jew. It doesn't really matter. They were
Yeah,
Muslims because
yeah.
Muslim means that they submitted to God, but they didn't practice the religion of Islam. I think that's very clear to
Right, but
anyone.
what does Islam
You're only
mean?
attract you're only going to attract people to your religion who would have come anyways out of fear. Like they'd be scared into becoming Mormon or Jehovah's Witness. You're not going to attract intelligent people with that argument because they'd acknowledge, they'll tell you, when was the Quran formulated, written, whatever. And they'll say after the 6th century. Okay, when was the Torah given? 3,000 years ago. So you're appropriating every one of the Jewish prophets as yourself as a tactic of saying that Islam was from the beginning. Adam was a Muslim. Adam was this only because they may have submitted to the will of God. That's very dishonest, right?
So,
I mean, that
what
alone.
what was the name of the religion of Adam or Abraham or Moses? Do they have a name of the religion like that
Torah,
God?
I'll tell you. I'll
Yeah,
tell you.
yeah.
Torah covenant. What does that mean? It means that
But
they agreed, they submitted themselves to the words of God. Torah means instruction, and covenant means
so
covenant
is
means
that the
agreement.
name?
That's
Is that
all it means. That's
is
what
that
they had. That was their religion, for lack
right?
of a term.
But
Okay.
but
So
God give that name? Did God give that name to the Israelites? You are Torah covenant. That's the name of your religion.
God didn't name a religion. I mean,
Okay.
it's like that nowadays, okay? Because God doesn't acknowledge other belief systems. In order for you to, in some way, distinguish yourself from everyone else, right, you would have to acknowledge that other religions are true. This is the only standard from God's perspective. So you either make an agreement to keep it or not, right? I mean, it's not like you're negotiating. No. You were Puerto Rican yesterday, you're Jewish today. It doesn't, I mean, it just sounds primitive. Come on, man.
No, but we are acknowledging that Abraham, Noah, Adam, Moses, all these prophets and messengers, they were monotheist. We are not debating. We agree on that. You're just saying now. We are saying they were Muslim. They were submitters to God.
I don't
That's
even
all.
view them as prophets. I
We
mean,
are
I don't
not saying they were Arabs. We are not saying they were
know.
Arabs. Right. We are not saying they were Arabs. Islam means peace and submission to the will of God. That's all. We are not saying that they were Arabs. We said they were Muslims.
You
Yes,
know
but
what?
to say that they're Muslim is also
How?
Here, look.
because you're basically using a word in the Arab language that means submission and
Mhm.
applying that only because they submitted now they are considered Muslim. We could argue the fact, sure, they submitted to the will of God, but religion wise they were not followers of Islam. They were follower of whatever they were following at that time,
How
which
do
is
you say submission in Hebrew?
Hold on. Here, new topic, man. New topic. We're
Okay.
going in
Topic.
circles. And,
All
and
right, new car. No, this I
no,
didn't
I
go
mean,
here.
here. I mean, someone
Let's
else
not.
is going to talk. I mean, someone
Yeah,
that we've given you time to talk, and I appreciate every time you come on the show. I mean, you're clearly an intelligent person, right? But I don't know why you keep on regurgitating the same arguments, right? I mean, I'm
no,
trying
no.
to give you the benefit of the doubt that there must be better arguments that
Yes.
keeps you Muslim, because
Okay.
this wouldn't do it for me. I mean,
And the other
here,
part you were saying
listen.
something. Yeah.
If Judaism would have came after Islam, right? And this is the only argument I had to convert people to Judaism, I would become Muslim. So I'm nudging you to become Jewish because I mean it sounds like any other later belief system that appropriated what their But instead of paying tribute to where your ethics actually come from, all you're saying is that we don't even understand our own Bible. It's really a slap in the face. Not to me, but to the God of the Bible. I'm not saying Islam is bad. Okay.
Okay. So
I'm saying that Judaism is better, and our arguments are a lot better because we don't even have to make them because we came before you.
Right, but Abraham came before you, right?
Okay.
Adam.
Yes. And the only thing we know about Abraham is what appears in our Bible. The only thing, because your Bible appeared much, much later, right?
Right, but
Okay.
God.
And what's the point? What's the point of you making that statement right there? Because I feel that you were trying to make a good point.
Okay. All right. My original, because I talked about this because the gentleman raised that point. Anyways, my original point was when you went to India, and I saw your video. So you converted some Hindus, I believe, to monotheism.
Christians, but yeah.
Oh, they were Christians. Okay. Yeah. All right. So did you ever convert any Hindus to Judaism?
Unfortunately, it's actually very dangerous in India to convert a Hindu because the government will probably send someone out to attack you. I mean, they're very strict on right. Hindus converting to any belief system other.
Yeah, Hindu fundamentalism is definitely on the rise there, especially at the political level, as much as it is in Israel as well. Though not, you have some right wing fundamentalists.
Wait a minute. But there's no religious fundamentalism on the national Israel.
Yeah,
okay, America doesn't exist anymore.
They're trying to knock that mosque down and make the third temple. That's their agenda.
You think the government, the secular government in Israel, cares about making a third temple? It shows that you very. Come on, it's a secular government. Well, let's be reasonable, okay? Like you don't think that Netanyahu is an Orthodox Jew, do you?
No, but I have seen him meeting Orthodox Jews, and there's one rabbi from 1987. There's a video of him. It's still on YouTube, and he's saying, "When will the Messiah come?" And he replied, Netanyahu said, "We are working on it. We are working on it." He said, "Little time is left. Work on it faster." This is still there. When he was a young man.
In 1967, we had control of the Temple Mount.
No, 1987, I'm saying that.
No, but just history. I mean, it's not Jewish history, it's world history. In 1967, we took control of the old city from the Jordanians. We had control of the Temple Mount. Not one bullet hit the Dome of the Rock or the Mosque of Omar, Alaska Mount, nothing. It was kept intact, and we gave it back to the Muslims. So how could there be a conspiracy of Jews trying to build a third temple when we had the ability to do it?
No, that was way back. You're talking about way back. That's 50 years ago. I'm talking about now. Yeah, you see now.
It didn't change. Israel is just a secular.
Heifer ready. They got the whole. There's an institute by the name of what is known as the Third Temple Institute, and there are rabbis working out the finer details.
Okay, it's the Temple Institute. Yeah. Okay, not government funded. It's a small little hole in the wall, private institution that is preparing the garments of the future priests. I'm pretty sure they're in charge of that golden menorah when you walk into Al-Quds, when you walk into the old city. I think they commissioned it. That may be the menorah they use in the temple, but it's not a government institution. The government does not endorse the Temple Institute. Right? The government is very anti-religious, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Anyways, so what is your position on pantheism? I thought because you went to India and perhaps you were you had encountered like pantheism, but you said they were Christians, so there wasn't much. Okay,
I did dialogue with Hindus. I mean, I spent time in Varanasi. And Varanasi is probably the holiest city for Hindus worldwide, and I loved it. I mean, I love Varanasi. I mean, not for the idolatry clearly, but the Ganga, and it's very interesting. It's a very beautiful place.
But so your cousins, Muslims, they went into.
You're not my cousins.
I mean, let's say those who have the Abrahamic, lineage, if you want to put it that way, they went to India almost like 1,200 years ago. All these people in India today who are Muslims, they convert, in Hindu, in Bangladesh, in India, some even in Pakistan as well. They converted from Hinduism from strict pantheism into being monotheist, followers of Abraham, by the way. Credit goes to Islam.
Tell you,
Okay. Yeah,
the,
that's not okay. Last part, I got to go. Last part, you were saying something about Arabia in the Bible that you haven't come across. Here's, I'll give you something here.
no, here, that's it, that's it.
Okay.
We have to let someone, I mean, I
Okay.
appreciate your contribution.
Okay.
You know,
All right. Okay.
media,
Take care.
got the office.
Thank you. Thank you.
No problem. All right.
Okay.
I mean, I let people, I mean, say their piece. I mean, consider this a platform for humanity, right? I mean, I was going to,
Rabbi.
but Hebrew Hammer is not as courteous as I am, you know, and I just kind of, I like talking to religious people, right? I mean, it's yeah.
But brother, you should understand what they do. Muslim, they don't understand. They kill the sheep for God and they eat the whole thing. If they follow Abraham, they should burn it.
No, okay. So there are some sacrifices that are completely burned. I think it's called the Corbanola. And then there's the vast majority of sacrifices are actually eaten. At least
The
after
inner fat.
after the Torah was given. I think in Abraham's time, they only had burnt offerings.
Yeah, but later on they do the inward, right? Only the fat of inward?
Well, not the fat. I mean, they would eat the meat. And they would
Yeah, of
separate.
course, but the fat of kidney and all the fat of inward will go to the altar.
Correct.
Yeah, and that's why when you fast, you basically sacrifice your body for the Father in heaven because you burn your inner fat.
That's interesting. I mean,
that's
God
your sacrifice. Listen, sacrifice never stop.
The Torah is justifying the keto diet. I mean, entering ketosis. I mean,
yeah,
I love it. No,
but listen, next time you fast, ask the Father in heaven, took all my fat, inner fat, as a burnt offering, and you will see the result.
Where do you live?
I'm in Vancouver.
Okay, nice, beautiful city. I love Vancouver.
Well, it's not gonna go. It's not gonna go really far. These fish gonna sink in the water soon. So.
Right. I mean, it's beautiful because you have the ocean and you have the mountains right there.
Yeah.
I moved to Seattle. I mean, Seattle has a small, decent Jewish community in a town called Seward Park, and I went there for Passover. And for some reason, some dummy in that community, got them not to welcome me in because I was considering moving there. And they're like, we don't want the Rabbi Asher Meza here because he's gonna make too many converts. So then I had to go for Passover. I'm telling you how sweet some Jewish people are. I went to the Chabad in Vancouver, which is around 2.5 hours away from Seattle. Day and night, Vancouver. I mean, Seattle's kind of like beat up. You know, Vancouver is such a clean and beautiful city. It's so beautiful. Hell, but yeah, way to go, Vancouver.
Oh, even in Vancouver, I went to the synagogue. They kicked me out. They called police.
Oh, yeah. So the synagogue I went to there was called the Semach-Tzedek synagogue. It's a beautiful big synagogue. It depends how you showed up. I mean, did you come in respectful, or were you trying to convert people to something else?
No, I go as a Jew. I just walk in. I give them the paperwork, invitation before. So as soon as I walk in, they call the cops. And the next synagogue, they don't want to even hear me. As soon as the guy hear me and he don't want me, he find me a dark guy from Middle East calling himself Jew. So.
I apologize on behalf of the Jewish people. And
no problem. Listen, I'm Jewish too. You don't need to apologize to us. So we're brother. Who cares?
Well, I mean, in behalf of jerky people in Israel, I mean, I think God is gonna repay them, and unfortunately, we're gonna end up suffering for their stupidity.
Guess what happened after that? After I even sent the paperwork to the synagogue in New York, right? So all of them rejected and they deny. And I had a dream. In the dream, it was a big pot, boiling water, and inside the pot was the head of the lamb and the pigs, right? They were boiling together, and the head of the rabbi, which denied the invitation, was on top of the pot, boiling with the pigs and the lamb.
So now I see why they.
I got my answer.
Rabbi, how you doing?
All right. Okay. Welcome, Bitcoin Free the World. Welcome.
Hey, my name is Ray from California. How you guys doing?
Hey, Ray.
Not about you. How are you?
What's up? I'm good. I got a question, Rabbi. I was under the impression on the Jewish religion that no one, like, you can't convert to Judaism. Now, I'm really, my parents were half. My father was Muslim, my mother was Jewish, and they never talked about religion and all that the whole time they were around. And I was under the impression that Judaism does not allow outsiders to convert. Am I wrong on that?
You're wrong. It's a misconception made popular by Muslims and not corrected by Jews, unfortunately. I mean, there are many. I mean, heck, Liz Taylor, Sammy Davis Jr., Marilyn Monroe, Connie Chung, uh, Tina Tequila. She converted to Judaism. Jenna Jameson. I mean, I don't know.
So that's false, then.
Ivanka Trump. Who else converted? Jesus. I mean, Jesus' great grandmother Ruth.
Sammy Davis Jr.
No, I mentioned him already. With the basketball.
Maris Stoudemire.
No, Stoudemire. Yeah, I mean Stoudemire, Shine, like the rapper.
Shine.
Nissim Black, which I don't even know why I mentioned him. I think he's not a good rapper, and he's just like a token black guy in Israel. I'm calling it like it is. I think he's horrible.
So it's possible then, huh?
Yeah, and you could become fully Jewish. Yeah, but your mother is Jewish or your father's Jewish?
Yeah, I mean, I know by my mom being already Jewish, but like I said, it was never preached. I mean, it was from both sides there were hatred. The marriage when they married back in the day from both sides of the family, it was very hard on them. They were in love. They didn't care religion. They just didn't believe like religion. Love overpowered all that stuff, right?
Wow.
So I know by default, because my mom's Jewish, I'm considered to be Jewish automatically. But it was never in our house. Like they grew up without ever talking about religion at all. And I was told that that you had to be, if you wanted to convert, that you were not. It wasn't obtainable. So that's the only reason I came on here, and I appreciate you guys, man, and best wishes to everyone, man.
Well, I mean, I consider you, or I welcome you to consider adopting the belief system of your ancestors, like via your mother. I mean, perhaps you should consider investigating if Judaism is for you or not.
It just the way like I grew up, and it just religion divides us, man. It just, if there's one God, there's just one God. And as long as we're all good, if we have one Father as a God, I believe we're going to get judged on what we do on this planet, and that's it.
Right.
With over 2,000 religions in the world, it's like, go ahead, pick one.
Right. Well, 2,000 religions. We're talking about like 3 major monotheistic religions are pretty much all based off the Torah to some extent. Yeah. I'd like to ask you the question: do you think atheism divides more than ethical monotheism?
I think if we all believe that this world is the end, that we would appreciate life a lot more than to think that there's an afterlife. Because all we have is today. Tomorrow's not guaranteed, right? So
that's a very powerful statement there, and this is why I tell people that staying out of hell and trying to get to heaven are the wrong reasons to choose a religion, right? I mean, like, you should choose a belief system or any path in life just because it's going to help you improve this world for the next generation. That's it. To leave the world a little better around it. The Bible doesn't talk about heaven and hell, but ask yourself, who contributes to making this world more of a better place? Religious people or atheistic individuals?
I honestly don't have an answer for you, brother. I try to be a kind person and help others. That's why I'm on this platform, to give back, man. And I believe the world, the greed in this world. Like I know, like kids from young age, there's bullies even at 5 years old. There's somebody that always As human beings, we all have addictions, whether it's sex, drugs, money, workaholic, alcoholic. People are addicted to money as well. But again, you cannot take that money when you die. You know, Denzel Washington said it best, man. You'll never see a U-Haul truck behind a hearse. So again, it goes back to my belief system that all I have is today, and what I can do here is to better someone else's life to give back.
Yeah,
And
right.
hopefully, if we all
And
have one Father,
way to
one
do that,
God. Go
I
ahead.
think
I'm
the best
sorry.
way to do that is by living according to an ethical law code that has been proven to work in the vast majority of cases. Right?
Right.
People who try to submit themselves to the ethical standards that appear in the Bible end up doing more good on this planet than people who don't. But you don't have to be, like a scientist to come up with that. I mean, it's just simple. If you try to temper your behavior according to some ethical code, you're going to do more than someone who determines ethics on a whim, right? I mean, according to their heart or whether they
Makes
hate.
sense. Makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not all, everybody's like that, but I get what you're saying.
No, in the vast majority of cases, especially children. I mean, I think it's very important to give your children, like, by the simple fact that your parents didn't really equip you with an actual standard, it left you questioning everything now, right? If perhaps they would have gave you something that they weren't fully convinced of, just so that you can make a more well-informed decision when you got older, I mean, I think that you'd be better off now. And perhaps you wouldn't have made all the decisions, or the bad decisions you made, the bad decisions I made, by being deprived of a religious education when we were children.
Yeah, appreciate you so much, Rabbi. Best wishes to everyone, and
all right, bro.
Appreciate you joining me. Appreciate it, man.
Okay, bro. Take it easy.
Bye-bye.
All right, guys, let's keep it going. That's it. It's 12.
Rabbi,
Who's
can
that?
I say something, Rabbi?
Welcome. Have fun, Tazrasu.
Yes, I have been waiting to talk again with you. So, Rabbi, I have make notes from the teachings as the Deuteronomy, and please correct me if there is something wrong in the notes. Okay.
Okay.
So you said that it can have very loose meaning in the Deuteronomy about the prophets that has come and will come, right? So how do we know for sure, like, who are the prophets that mentioned there in the Deuteronomy? Like what is the standards?
Mm-hmm. So the truth is, it really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who claims to be a prophet. It's who's able to get you back on track. There's people nowadays fulfilling the role of a prophet. There's people, excluding me, I mean, people a lot more knowledgeable than I am, who work day and night. People, I'll say, like Dennis Prager, let's say. And I mean, he's not so religious from an Orthodox perspective, but I think he's brought more people to religion than anyone alive. There are people who devote their lives for the betterment of other people. And I think these people, when they're promoting the God of the Bible and his commandments, are fulfilling the role of a prophet. Because the job of the prophet is to bring you back to God's message, not to introduce you to a new message. That's why, I mean, it doesn't really matter, right? If the message doesn't change, it doesn't matter who the prophet is. Now, if you're not knowledgeable in the Bible, you could be misled by a false prophet. But if you know, well, the Torah says this, and this prophet's telling me to do that, this is why you need some sort of a religious education, or you'd possibly become a Muslim or a Christian.
Sir, you mentioned about the job of the prophet is to make you back to the God's message, and
Yeah.
the prophets, like we have different claim from different area, different religions. Like the Christian have their own prophets, but some of the prophets from the Christian are taking from the Torah, and the Muslim has their own claim with the prophet. So like this God message, they be like uh, they can claim that they know the God's message, right? But like if I ask, like Moses, the prophet Moses has been like unaliving one person, and after that, did he unalive more people in battle like what Prophet Muhammad did, or like Jesus that Prophet Isa, like probably the Christians say that it is the Messiah. He never unalive people. Do you understand my confusion here, right? So
Uh,
what is the standards? I still don't,
but
because everyone can make claims that they are the prophet. I can
yeah,
make claim that I know.
a prophet doesn't have to be sinless. I mean, what is that? I mean, prophets are just like you and I. That Muslims embellish every biblical character and whitewash their whole existence, which is why when you speak of David or anyone you claim to be a prophet that appears in our Bible, we for sure can't be talking about the same person because your prophets don't sin. Our prophets are depicted with warts and all, teaching us that if God could use them, God could use us. I think it's more believable, right? I mean, it sounds more of a forgery, right? I mean, if you go, heck, I don't know, like you buy a Rolex and it's completely polished away, right? I mean, it shows that it's you're hiding something.
Oh, so is it like there is a standard to that? Okay, prophet can go around and like go to war, or prophets cannot go to war and unalive people.
No, there's no issue with that. And there's okay, listen. The role of the prophet in Judaism is not such an important role. You know why? Because the books of the prophets were never sanctioned by God. God never told us, write books of these individuals who are in some way going to try to lead you back to the right path. The Talmud says there were hundreds of thousands of prophets only because some rabbis decided to canonize 24 books of the prophets. Doesn't mean that in order to be a prophet, in order to get your name in the Bible, you had to be a spectacular person. Not true. There were many people telling Israel, wake up, get back on track. You're gonna get exiled. All right, you're gonna be occupied. Only because we have a Bible now, right? With the book of Isaiah and Jeremiah, you're thinking like, how do we know they're prophets? Well, their name appears in the Bible. It's actually rabbis who wrote those books who put them in there, right? So the only reason you know these prophets exist is because the rabbis made it known to you. But I mean, I guess you don't pay tribute to where your Bible stems from. So the role of the prophet is not important, okay? It's about Torah observance. It's actually a shame on the Jewish people when they arise because it's telling us that we're doing something wrong. That's it, but now suddenly we elevate the role of the prophet because their whole position has been reinterpreted as someone who brings something new, a new message, because Islam teaches that just like Muhammad or just like Moses brought a new message to Israel, Jesus brought a new message to his followers, and Muhammad, the final messenger, brought another final message for the rest of the world. This progression is very dangerous because some other prophet could get you to do things that God told you not to do, which is pretty much what Islam says. Right now, we could eat camel. Now we could eat like rabbits. We don't have to keep the Sabbath. Right? It's very dangerous to have an open door policy regarding revelation. It's not a coincidence where the Torah specifically tells us in two places. In Hebrew it says, Lo tosef alav velo tigram imenu. Don't add or take away from these instructions. Right? And the Quran says the same thing because they're smart enough to know that our religion needs a safety net. The New Testament says the same thing. Right? So let's go with the first time it appears in monotheistic history, in biblical monotheistic history. And that's Judaism. Perhaps you should consider becoming Jewish. Maybe. It might be for you, it might not be for you, but look into it.
That's very good idea. Okay, so I sum up these teachings is like your teachings, like the prophets are the ones that tells you to get back on track because they knew what will happen if you stray apart from the true teachings, the first teaching, the original teachings. So basically, like in these Catholics, they have saints. Is this what your teaching means, Rabbi?
That the job
So
of the
like the Catholics
back to
saints.
no, the Catholic saints. No, I'm not a Catholic, but I think I'm honest enough to give you a non-biased opinion of what I think of Catholic saints. I mean, they're very similar to Jewish saints. I mean, it's not a coincidence that the word saint in Hebrew is tzaddik, right? So in Judaism, at least Kabbalistic Judaism, they elevate the notion of a tzaddik. So a tzaddik is a righteous individual. From a rational perspective, that's someone whose good deeds outweigh his bad deeds. So they're there as role models, and that's really what Catholic saints are there to do for the Catholic people. They're there to act as role models.
Role models. Oh, very good, very good. So I can assume that the Christian, the Muslim, they venerate this role model too much. Like all the Muslim imam can also will fill the role as these prophets, and all the Catholics pastor also can fill the role as long as they don't stray to the original teaching. So it is not like what the Muslim want to portray, that Muhammad is like the biggest, the last. There will be like prophets, right?
Brother, let me make something easy for you, right? I study Quran. Listen, the history of the Zayd and Zainab is the history of King David and the wife of Uriah. If you read the First King, Second King, book of Samuel, First and Second, you will find all those 5 stories in Quran about the Muhammad. They're actually being stolen from the history of King David. When King David lost his child, the infant, when Muhammad lost his infant Abraham, they're all copy of the Judaism. And the Shia that you hear before, like right now they have an imam, they call him Sadiq. Those are brother, they're all Jewish people sleeping in those graves in Persia. They're not Arabs, they're all Jewish that speak Arabic. And the Quran, the main source of the Quran came from Judaism. Like the house of Kawthar. You know what's the house of Kawthar? It's the same pool when Jesus Christ healed the blind man. And it's the pool of King David. That pool is destroyed long ago.
I like this very much, brother. You
Yeah,
you
just
give me
listen.
knowledge.
Four books. Samuel 1, second, the king first and second. You read them, right? Read these books. Then you will
Please,
know how Quran copy all the story exactly. Then they changed the name. Only they changed the name. Listen, when Muhammad ran away and hide in the cave with it was Omar or Abu Bakr. Guess what? King David ran away for his life from the house of his wife, and he ran away to the cave. The same history of the Muhammad that you heard, it happened to the King David all over.
brother, this I feel you are very knowledgeable. I respect you so much. But I want to follow you. Please follow me back because I cannot remember all of it. I will be asking some question. I will
Oh, no
already
problem, brother. Yeah.
I already follow the rabbi. I respect you so much, rabbi. So I will just continue because later I will DM you and asking more and making notes if that's okay with you. Okay.
No worries,
So
man.
uh, if
I'm going to
Jewish
become
like
Jewish.
at the next,
I feel it.
can I continue with the question, rabbi?
Yeah, go ahead.
So if Jewish, they came first, the Jewish came first, and then the Christianity came. I have been talking a lot with the Muslim. The Islam said that the truth is that everything since Adam, since the first prophet, the first creation is the Adam is everything is Muslim. How do I make sense of this in the Jewish belief?
So in the Torah, the central figure is God. And I guess the second figure in the collective is human. The way God communes with man is via his instructions. That's it, right? When man submits himself to God's word, i.e., his instructions, commit means essentially to enter a covenant. That's the extent. That's the extent of the relationship between God and man. Whatever you want to call that. Call that Islam. Call it Judaism. Call it. It doesn't really matter what you call it. It still has to do with submitting to God's instructions. That's it. I know Muslims call it Islam. It doesn't. From a descriptive term, it is Islam. They weren't practicing the religion of Islam as it's taught by Muhammad, but they were submitting to God. I mean, why play games and play with words? Just submit to the instructions of God. Now, it's very convenient for later religions to say that we corrupted those instructions to justify or solidify their existence, right? Islam is a new religion. If they didn't ridicule what came before, i.e. Christianity and Judaism, they wouldn't have a right to exist. So for sure, it's expected that they're going to do it. The sad part are those who fall for it. And the people who fall for it are typically people who don't know much about what appears in the actual Bible. So they hear, Moses was a Muslim? I've been lied to all along. Jesus was a Muslim. David was a Muslim, right? Honestly, I mean, are you really impressed? The people who would come to religion based on those arguments are people who would have come for stupider reasons, right? Now, I'm not going to in some way shoot down anyone who comes for any reason. That if something makes you a better person, more power to you. However, I would rather fill my pews with people who had an intellectual connection with the Creator via his ethical system than someone who just was fooled by like, I mean, not even quick-witted arguments. I mean, it's just like fear, essentially, fear and misinformation.
Rabbi, with all respect, Rabbi, and correct me if I'm wrong, okay? So, based on the logic you just teach us, so if that's the case, is just the word play. So we can also say that Muhammad is a Christian because Christian meaning to follow the teaching of the Christ, which is Isa, which is Prophet Isa, and Muhammad is also a follower, and as the Christian is also Jesus is also a Muslim is right, and the Muhammad is also a Christian is also right,
That's a
based
good
on
point.
this logic.
That's a very good point.
I see.
Wait
I
a minute.
see.
Come on. No, there's no way. I mean, you must be an undercover Jew, right? I mean,
No, I'm an agnostic. I go everywhere. I ask question.
Oh,
I try religion. I try to understand religion.
I'm here thinking that I'm converting an Islam, like a Muslim, to Judaism. But yeah, okay, so fine. Yeah, that's a great argument. That's a great argument. Every Muslim is technically a Christian also, right? Because they believed in the person that people call Christ. Okay, yeah, no, for sure.
Okay, can I move to the next question, Rabbi?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
So the next question is like, in the Abrahamics, you have to be circumcised, right? So why do you need to be circumcised in the Jewish belief, and what will happen if you don't get the circumcision?
So there are many ceremonial commands in the Torah that don't literally make sense to us. I guess from a historical perspective, you can have more insight than someone else and saying, well, circumcision, I mean, back then, the way people sealed deals was by holding onto the penis of a man. Whatever, anything, I mean, could be brought up. However, what makes and breaks our religion is this book in some way spewing unethical behavior. Only because there's ceremonial portions of the Torah that ultimately make no sense. Like, why can't I mix wool and linen? It doesn't literally say. There are many commentators out there, okay, because wool signifies death and like linen signifies life. Okay, whatever. It's just not there. So the Torah is split up between commandments between man and God, which are typically called hukim, like commandments that we don't necessarily know the practical reason for. And then there's commandments called mishpatim, or like mitzvot ben adam lemakom, like between God. Mitzvot ben adam lechavero, commandments between man and man, which are ethical commands that actually make sense to us. And it's because of these ethical commands that we tolerate the more ceremonial commands that we're like, why are we doing this? Right? Why can't we eat pork? I mean, it doesn't say another reason apart from just God saying so. So I don't know.
So the Jewish are also not okay to eat the pork.
Correct.
Oh, I see.
The circumcision is also for trees too. So 3 years you cannot eat, the 4 year will go to the priest, and the 5th year you can eat it. So this is how you circumcise the tree.
Because of the word orla? All right, okay. I don't know what that has to do with.
Oh, because in the beginning, Adam created as a tree.
All right.
Okay, moving to the next question, Rabbi. Why is the Abrahamics so disagree, anti against the LGBT?
Huh. Okay. Well, I don't like lumping all these groups together. I mean, they really have nothing in common necessarily. So the Torah prohibits sexual behavior man on man, that a man should align with a man as he does with a woman. It doesn't prohibit you falling in love with someone, I mean, having a best friend. Anyone who's ever lived in Israel or visited Israel and ever walked by the Arab shuk, I mean, you see Arabs sitting on each other's laps, holding hands. I mean, there's bromance
I don't think there is LGBT Arab, Rabbi.
in secret. They are. I mean, for sure in secret. Why is the Torah against it? Well, the Torah is against it inside the borders of the land of Israel, because God didn't find it in some way conducive to a healthy, growing society, and it makes sense. It makes sense. As much of of this concept that we accept in secular society today, I think it's essentially a net loss. Right? I mean, we've allowed a very small portion of the population to dictate what the vast majority of the people of this country think and how we behave. And it's kind of hard to put that cat back into the bag. But again, the Torah only prohibits it for the land of Israel. Like, if you wanted to have sex with a man outside of the borders of Israel, the Sanhedrin would have no jurisdiction to in some way punish you for doing so. So, I mean, that's really what the law teaches.
Okay, moving to the next question. What is the concept? I am trying to understand what is the concept of Judaism? What is the promise in the Judaism as a belief as a religion? What is the promise of Allah in the Judaism? What makes the Judaism claims as the truth?
I don't think that notion of the truth appears in our Bible.
But why should I, as a person, become a Jewish? Like, is there any promise? Is there anything, the truth or what? Probably.
So, why should you become Jewish instead of Muslim or Christian, or why should you become Jewish instead of atheism?
I'm trying to understand the Judaism, the concept as a religion. Is there
Okay.
any promise, like, oh, you will get heaven or Jannah, or if you don't believe, you go to Jahannam, or like, what makes it the truth? Or, oh, we already prophecies that this will happen.
So, I'm going to answer from a Torah perspective, because I think only the Torah has the authority to speak on metaphysical issues. I mean, legal issues could be spoken in what we call the oral law and like those we call chazal. So the Torah says that the only reward there is for keeping Torah is the improvement of your society. That's all it says. Having rain season.
I'm sorry. The what, Rabbi?
What?
I cannot hear.
Okay. So the Torah says that the reward for keeping his instructions is seeing your children grow old, having rain in your season, essentially having peace. That's all the Torah says. The Torah doesn't condemn people to hell or promise them heaven. Now, I believe in an afterlife. I just don't think the Torah commands me to believe it. I think in order for God to be just, there's a lot of decent people who suffer unjustly, and there's a lot of crappy people who get away with a lot. So I think there has to be some sort of divine justice. Although our Bible doesn't say that. It seems like it wants us to do the right thing for the sake of doing the right thing. Not because of coercion, because of fear, because of empty promises that can never be, validated till after you die. Do you see how dangerous that is? Someone else in the future could offer you 1,000 virgins. I don't know, pina coladas, Bugattis in heaven. This is why incentives as a reason for doing anything. It's a primitive approach to like ethics and morality, whether you're going to follow and obey the person who promises you more. So I think Judaism is way more sophisticated than Christianity and Islam, just on that fact that it's telling you to do the right thing because it's the right thing to do, which means that it wants you to internalize ethics. This individual moral training that appears in the Torah, it wants you to make that connection. Now, truth be told, I don't really give a crap why people do good on this planet. However, it is going to determine how long you remain religious. If people are scared into becoming religious, their religiosity typically doesn't last that long. And what occurs is they build resentment, not just towards the God of the Bible, but God in general. And these are people who leave religion and become the biggest enemies of religion in the future. So it's very important to educate people in the beginning that the reason they should want to do the right thing, heck, it's because it's the right thing to do, and they want to leave this planet a little better for their kids than they found it. And I think that's the most mature approach that people should take towards religion.
But Rabbi, everyone, if there is heaven and there is like Jannah, everyone wants to go there after life. Like in the Jahannam, nobody wants to go to Jahannam. I mean, there should be like a gift for doing good, right? There should be an effect if you do follow Islam, follow Christian.
There is, and it's on this planet. It's verifiable, and people could see it. I've advocated in the past for Jewish women, modest Jewish women, to enter the ghettos and educate women there on modesty and not sleeping around with every man who buys them a Happy Meal. Why? Because the results of leaving a decent lifestyle are visible. That you don't have to die to validate it. So, heck, I mean, the results of making good decisions, learning from hearing instead of doing, i.e., learning things the hard way, is probably the worst way to learn. But someone instructing you, I mean, a lady telling a woman, don't do that, don't dress like that. Why? Because it's going to make your life more difficult in the future. I mean, this is not a complicated notion.
Okay, I'm sorry for the noise. That was I live in the Muslim, so there is a lot of adhan in this area currently. So let me continue with the question. So you are not sure what will happen, but there will be afterlife. So
No.
do the
I didn't say that there will be an afterlife. The Torah doesn't say that. Okay. I have a lot of personal beliefs. Hey guys. The difference between me and what other people do is that I don't incorporate my personal beliefs into my religion. If the Torah doesn't say it, I'll tell you, look, the Torah doesn't say it, but the vast majority of Jews believe it, for sure, right? So Judaism does teach it, but Judaism doesn't always mean what the Torah teaches. Judaism means the religious practices of the Jewish people, the religious practices. But the Torah, it's just like some things that appear in the Hadith and things that don't appear in the Quran, right? And it's still considered.
Is there possibility of belief in the Jewish that will be like reincarnation?
So I like the idea of reincarnation, but it appears nowhere in the Torah, and it's an idea that was introduced into Jewish life by Kabbalah, which is it's not an idea that I'm crazy about. It appeared in a book called the Zohar, predominantly, although it existed in the Jewish world before, it's just not in our major rabbinic texts. But it's a nice idea. I mean, I like life enough that I want to come back and enjoy it more and more.
So you don't reject it, and you also not sure if it is correct, right?
No. I'm giving you my personal opinion. I'll tell you that the Torah doesn't teach on the notion. It's not a Jewish idea. Okay, it's believed by a lot of Jewish people, but that's essentially because they bought into a lot of extracurricular beliefs. I mean, it's just not in the Torah. I'm just saying it's not a bad idea. It sounds like a nice idea. I want to come back, possibly conscious of my previous life. Right? I mean, who doesn't want to come back? I mean, you really. I guess if some people become too heavenly good that they're no earthly good, and this is when they start blowing themselves up because they're trying to get to the other world because they appreciate the other world more than this world. And I think that's the downside of offering incentive to become religious.
But like there is only two other option if you don't believe in this. So the first option will be like forever in heaven, in hell, in Jannah, in Jahannam, and then the next option will be you cease to exist, like what the atheists believe, right?
Allahu Akbar. So, yeah. Look, I have no problem you having a personal belief. The problem I have is with someone including that into dogma, saying like, you know what? If you're not convinced of my interpretation of the afterlife, then you can enter my mosque, you can enter my synagogue. That's the birth of destructive religion. I think it's healthy to have optional beliefs and say, you know, I believe in this. It's just not in our core text. So I believe this and you believe that. But this is a religious show. I'm not going to speak in behalf of Torah and say the Torah teaches that there's heaven and there's hell. I understand that Islam and Christianity teach that because they're offshoots of Judaism, and they're particularly offshoots of rabbinic Judaism, because these notions are more rabbinic in nature than anything. Our Bible doesn't really talk about heaven and hell. So this is why it's hard to believe that the same author who wrote the Torah that didn't mention demons, didn't mention Satan, didn't mention an afterlife, is somewhat the same author of the Quran and the New Testament, which does. So,
Hey, doing, Rabbi?
yeah, what's up?
Shalom. I have a question. You kind of talked about it for a second. You know, I've growing up in the Muslim community, we heard things like, you know, a Jewish person can come and pray in a masjid, and they cannot pray in a church because we worship the same God as the Jewish person does.
Right.
And the Christians don't, or some reason, you know, something like that. And then, so when if the Jewish person says you can go in a mosque and pray there because we worship the same God, can you also, I guess you can say, utilize the 99 names of Allah, and vice versa? As a Muslim, why wouldn't I be able to utilize the 72 names of the Elohim as like a source of power and to repeat the names and whatnot?
Sure. Okay. Well, see, the idea that a Jew could pray in a mosque is not a universal idea. It was the opinion of one rabbi, a very influential rabbi by the name of Maimonides, also known as the Rambam, Rabbi Maimon ibn Musa ibn Maimon. I mean, he's
In Spain, right?
Because he was a personal doctor of Saladin.
Oh yes, I heard about that.
So, because of his opinion, the vast majority of Jews who are greatly influenced by his teachings started repeating it. Now, the idea of a Jew praying in a mosque doesn't mean that they're praying Islamic prayers. There's that you're allowed to pray in a building, right? You're allowed to pray your prayers in their building, but you're not praying their prayers, clearly. So the idea is that they would be praying in Hebrew, although there's no obligation to completely pray in Hebrew, but there's certain parts of the prayer, like the Shema, that have to be uttered in Hebrew. This is a whole notion about there's certain words we have to elongate, that the only way you can elongate it is if you say it in Hebrew. So in terms of you using the 72 names of God, that's more Kabbalistic in nature. The idea that there's many different names of God. I mean, the Torah talks about different names for God, but the idea of a 72-letter name of God or anything of that, you can utter it if you want. I don't think it's an issue. The Talmud prohibits uttering the 4-letter name of God in one area. In another portion of the Talmud, it says that we should greet each other using the 4-letter name of God. The Talmud is written throughout a period of Jewish history where at one part the temple was standing and at another part the temple wasn't standing. You know, so people started to forget how that name was pronounced. So, in fear of mispronouncing the name, they said that it should not be uttered. So Jews today say Hashem, which just means the name, pointing to the tetragrammaton, the Yud He Vav He or Yud He Vav He. So,
Rabbi,
I think you could use that name.
Rabbi, I have one last question before I drop down. I will just drop down after this. So, the last question is like, how do you join the Judaism, and is there any kind of shahada or something like this, and what do you need to do if you want to try to see and to learn the knowledge, more knowledge about Judaism? Thank you, Rabbi.
Okay. So there's no actual shahada in terms of something you have to say in order to be Jewish. The conversion process is rabbinic in nature. In the Talmud is broken down like this: Korban, Mila, Tevila. I guess whatever from a Sephardi perspective. Korban, Mila, Tevila. Korban means sacrifice. The rabbis instituted that when someone converts to Judaism, they have to bring a sacrifice. There's no temple nowadays, so we can't bring that sacrifice.
Yeah, the father-in-law of the Moses did the same thing, so he brought the sacrifice.
Yeah. Well, in general, if someone's returning back to Judaism, let's say, there's a lot to repent for. So that's the understanding. Mila means like bris mila, circumcision. The other thing is tevilah, which is immersion. So nowadays, we don't have a temple. All you have to do if you're a male is circumcise yourself and immerse yourself in front of 3, some sources say 2 witnesses. And that is what gets you in the door of being Jewish from a legal perspective. That has nothing to do with being in a covenant with God. Just like someone could be born Jewish and not necessarily be in a covenant with God. That's between you and God. If you commit yourself to Torah observance, to keeping those commandments, that's how you become special to God. God says in the Torah that you'll be his Am Segulah, his treasured people, only if you keep his commandments. So being Jewish doesn't mean that you're part of God's people. It just means that you're legally counted as a citizen of redeemed Israel, not the state of Israel. The state of Israel is a secular government. It has nothing to do with like biblical Israel. But this also tells us that even if though you don't go through the conversion process, the formal conversion process as it exists today, but today you want to commit yourself to Torah observance, you could enter that covenant today. That's it. You wouldn't be counted as part of the Jewish people till you go through a formal conversion process, but you could be in a covenant with God and thus reap the rewards and all the blessings of being in a covenant with God. If you accept the Torah, just like the mixed multitude and the Hebrews accepted the Torah of Mount Sinai, you would have the same status that they had. A religious connection between you and the God of Israel via observance. That's it. And that's really what counts. However, making the world a better place is a team effort. So it behooves you to align yourself with like-minded individuals, and that's where becoming part of physical Israel comes in. So yeah.
Yeah, and then when you circumcise, you can eat the Passover meal, right? The lamb.
Correct. I mean, if
otherwise you can't. Yeah.
The lamb. I mean,
yeah. Brother, which country are you right now?
I'm in America.
Oh, so you are in the belly of the fish.
I don't know what that means. You know, I mean, what the
you
lamb.
Know you don't know about the belly of the fish?
No. I mean, in terms of Yonah.
Yeah, I am in Vancouver, so we are both in the belly of the fish right now.
All right.
I'll send you a private message so you will know about the fish, though.
And hopefully it's not sexual.
Actually, Rabbi, can I just mention, Rabbi, I just wanted to pick up on a point, and I joined the live only because I heard something earlier on. I think that was it the Mystic brother sort of said, and he mentioned about reincarnation, and I think he said that whilst it's not maybe mentioned in the Torah, it's maybe mentioned in the Zohar, and it's an interesting idea. Now, I'd just like to chime in on a point that there's so much documentation about reincarnation now, so many documented cases. Similarly to near-death experiences, there are so many recorded cases now, clinically recorded. This is the difference. Before they were anecdotal, now they are clinically recorded. I watched a meeting on stage, clinical psychologists, psychiatrists, etc., people from the medical profession actually discussing these. And the weight of evidence is so great. There are so many clinically recorded incidences of this. This is no longer something that, I think, to use your phrase, something that isn't a quote unquote interesting idea. This is something that is now regarded as a medical fact. So when we regard it as a medical fact, we're kind of forced to no longer use words such as an interesting idea or something that is an abstract concept. It's something that it's something
I
that
like. I want reincarnation.
once it enters.
So
Yeah,
I'm not
the point I'm making is,
However, right when you use
huh?
the word medical fact, I think I'm cringing just like when people say scientific theory, and
Hmm.
they'll call that science. It's an interesting notion. I want it to be true. I wouldn't call it medical fact. All right. I
Well,
mean, just
there's so many cases of it. There's so many cases of it now that what medicine is saying is that this is a phenomenon that occurs. So effectively, someone, well, if we take literally what the cases are kind of telling us, this is a soul of somebody that has passed away, that has somehow in a short span of time, right? In a short span of time, entered the body of a young child. The young child has grown up within a few years and starts talking to his parents about a life and about people and about situations that he actually knew, and then he recalls how he died as well. So they've then taken that child to where he said his real family was, and they still happen to be alive. This is what's interesting, because they're alive, they can bear witness and testimony to everything that he's saying, and he remembers them. Not only does he remember them, he remembers situations that no one could actually have known about had it not been him, had that not been his soul that had transferred. So what makes these cases interesting is that often it happens in a short span of time. It happens within the lifetimes of the people that lost that soul, and they can recount everything that this young child is actually telling them. And it's not, and so this is what makes it interesting to me. So the fact is, when I look at it, what this ultimately points to is, I mean, I should say I'm a Sikh by birth, but I've got a much more sort of spiritual, kind of
I
belief
was
system.
so last year I went to Amritsar and I went to the
Yeah.
Golden Temple.
Okay, yeah, no, absolutely. You know what? You're probably more a Sikh than I am in that case, because even I haven't. And but the I think the ultimate belief is that I've come to realize the existence of a soul, and that it basically does it kind of does live on beyond this mortal coil. That we're very much spiritual beings here, having a human experience in this flesh, blood and bone spacesuit. And the reason that we're in this flesh, blood and bone spacesuit is because it's the only way that we can navigate this three-dimensional experience or dream that we're having. And it's interesting because I've had an out of body, I've had a few out of body experiences that show me that it's possible to move this consciousness, this kind of ego self, or whatever we want to call it, this soul, or astral self or astral body, move this consciousness outside of the body. Now, once you do that, you kind of this is sort of a gateway experience. You can't unhave an experience like this. And part of the problem is that everyone will say that I am mad. I've explained this to my friends, and they look at you as if you're crazy. And the way that I always explain this is that this is not something that you can mentally imbibe. It's not something that can soak into your consciousness osmotically. You have to have experienced it. So the point at which you experience something like this, you can't go back. It's now part of your reality. And so the soul very much it does sort of depart the body. So there is existence. There is, the soul kind of is eternal. This experience that we're having physically is finite. but it doesn't mean that it's the end of our soul. We will go into different reincarnations or different carnations. And how I've kind of view life and the world is that this is a finishing school. It's basically a place where we come to learn lessons, and these lessons aren't learned in a lifetime. What we do is we kind of store up karma along the way. So, for example, maybe I think we come here in soul families. So, for example, I might have been an abusive father, and caused absolute mayhem to my particular child. My karma will be in the next incarnation. As a soul family, we decide that I come back as a child, so I can experience essentially,
Kabbalists believe it, by the way.
everything.
I mean, they interpret
Oh,
reincarnation.
okay.
I mean, Kabbalists also believe that you can reincarnate as inanimate objects. So you could come back as a rock or a chair, to in some way pay for your previous deeds. I mean, they incorporate a lot of Eastern ideas. I like the idea. It's just I'm not going to say that my religion teaches it or the Torah teaches it. That's the difference between me and your average Kabbalist that will try to reinterpret verses in the Torah to allow it somehow. I just think that we should take a literal approach to our Bible, and we can entertain other beliefs, but not judge other people on the basis of them accepting our interpretation.
No, absolutely. I mean, I think, look, the way that I've always looked at it is that, I never argue or question other people's beliefs because they're their beliefs, right? I'm just glad that they have them because so many people don't have any form of belief. And I think that ultimately, everyone has to take what serves them, and belief is a powerful thing. But so it's interesting then. So the Kabbalist tradition? It sounds like that's the more mystical side of the Jewish tradition, whereas similarly the Sufi sect is kind of the mystical side of Islam. Now, to me, it's interesting how. So if we take these Abrahamic faiths, these two in particular, I find it fascinating how a mystical tradition grows up around them, or actually is an offshoot of them. And how I view it is that if we look at kind of the Abrahamic faiths, Judaism, Islam, Christianity, they're very much outward faiths. It's very much outward faiths in terms of the expression, and the devotion is very much an outside job. Whereas, the Eastern traditions, Hinduism, Buddhism, etc., that kind of signifies the inner pathway. The route to God is basically we have a spark within us. Part of the enlightenment process is to energetically reach the vibration and the frequency of that, so to be one with it, and that's kind of
like, I don't want to make the show too much about that, but Kabbalistic Judaism, in
no.
case you in joining the Jewish people, I think you'd find a lot of similarities in books like the Tanya. It dissects your soul from not just your soul. It tries to dissect God philosophically, well, spiritually, right? Even attributing God or like reproductive organs to God, and there's it's just not my cup of tea. I don't teach that. I try to appeal to rationalists a little more, to like inquisitive college kids. But if like it makes you a better person, then I'm all for it. I mean, the reason the Torah itself doesn't deal so much with the mystical is because it's trying to get you to be more earthly minded, to worry more about the here and now, and not make you more heavenly good that you're no earthly good. I mean, the Torah specifically says that the secret things are for God, and only what He has revealed for us to us is for us and our children to do. So like, we see when people try to become too heavenly minded that they're actually no earthly good. They try to leave. They try to exit prematurely by, possibly acts of martyrdom or through seclusion, right? But the only way, if you don't impact this world physically, the world might impact you in a negative manner. So this is why, I'm more for pragmatic religion than mystical spiritual pursuits. Yeah.
Yeah, the way I view it, that's actually an interesting point. So, I picked up the phrase I picked up on particularly was the fact that we're kind of more interested in sort of practicing being, earthly good rather than sort of heavenly good in this. And I can understand how, the religious books actually kind of preach that. It's more on the kind of the practice of the humanity. It's like, for example, I heard the phrase earlier on today by a Muslim brother saying that Islam is not a religion, it's a way of life. And so this is ultimately, I guess, what the books are trying to preach is the way of life, the way of kind of humanity, the way of ultimately being an earthly being, as opposed to being lost or technically in quotes being lost and practicing sort of heavenly pursuits before your time. But the point is that the interesting thing about the inner path is that it says that, do you know what, you don't need to exit this realm or to try and exit this realm in order to receive your heavenly pursuits. So the example I use are the samadhis, the holy men of India, the guys that go off in a cave and disappear for 10 or 15 years. And apparently it looks like they're just sitting in a cave, just absolutely, in the cold, and they'll have a little bit of food there maybe, but they will stay there for years in deep meditation. Now, the real irony is that you look at them and, you see that there's a body there. There's someone that's sitting prostrate, cross-legged in a lotus position, and physically he's there. But the point is that his spirit, his consciousness is roaming the universe. He is not there. Physically, he is there. But this
No,
is
I hear
what
you.
they... This is...
Pursuit. I mean, what do you say?
No, but
With that?
the point that I'm making is that it's possible to actually achieve those heavenly states whilst being a human, and to integrate the two. Because if you could learn exit techniques, for example, let's just say that
But it's
you
the message in the Torah is to keep us away from this supposed heavenly state, to make us more earthly minded. There's if someone retires into piety in some cave, they become ethically, socially irrelevant. That means who's going to fight tyrants? I mean, who's going to take care of the widow, the orphan, the stranger? I mean, not the person naked in a cave in a lotus position. It's typically the person who tries to internalize ethics and I mean, physically try to impact the world for the right reasons, right? I mean, this is why it's dangerous.
You're right. Rabbi, you're right, but here's the point: that for every kind of mystic that's stuck in a cave, there are people that go to sleep every night who actually astral project. That means their consciousness comes out of their body. Now, this is something that they can't help doing. This is something that they actually can't stop themselves doing, because this has happened to them from an early age. So astral projection is a phenomenon. It's a technique that people can learn. For example, it requires sort of deep relaxation of the body. Basically, what you're doing is you're keeping your mind awake whilst putting the body to sleep, and then there are exit techniques so that you can make your consciousness leave the body. Sounds woo woo, but take it from me, it's true, because it's happened to me. But here's something that people do this every night, though. This is where
with the East hasn't really influenced the world as much as the West has, is because the Western mindset is to work hard to leave something for my children. This is like traditionally Jewish businesses were, like Johnson and Sons, well, John Sons, right? David and Sons. But the idea that it doesn't really matter what I do on this planet, because I'm going to come back and I'm able to fix it in some former life, or in some in a next life, and keep on fixing it till I reach nirvana. I think is an ethical net loss on this planet, right? Because
that's not the thinking. That's not the thinking. No one thinks that way. No one thinks that way, because the reality of it is no, because you only actually have this incarnation, even though your spirit is eternal and it is capable of having multiple lifetimes. You will never remember one lifetime to the next. That just doesn't happen. So you are fully invested in this experience, the one experience that you have. This is a one-shot deal, for everyone, whether you believe in reincarnation or not, whatever your belief system is. But the point that I'm trying to make is that I find it interesting to kind of circle back to the point that I was trying to make, is that that within, say, the Torah and with the Quran, that they have had to have mystical traditions that leap out of them. And how I view that these mystical traditions is that these are people that have come from the faith, so come from Judaism, come from Islam, that have realized that actually, do you know what, either by accident or whatever means that they have, that there is an inner pathway. And they whilst studying the outward practice, they've come in tune with the inner pathway, the more Eastern tradition, and they've questioned the faith. Now, my Sikh, Sikh, actually means to learn. So the name of our religion means to learn, and it's interesting for mean that I kind of did. That's the only thing that I ever have done, is that if you're born with a brain, the first thing that you should do is, I believe, question everything. So when I come to any faith, I will read it, but I come with questions. And this is I think part and parcel of what everybody should do, because the answers that you have and your own spiritual journey can only be fulfilled if those questions get answered. And I think that's the way that ultimately you reach your faith, and you reach, because we're all here to have our own spiritual journey. Everyone has their own spiritual journey.
Okay. But I appreciate you coming on.
But can you see the point?
No,
I appreciate because I'm learning, but I'm trying to.
But I'm just making a distinction between that and what literally appears in my Bible, which I think it's more practical in nature. But I appreciate the whole notion of reincarnation. It sounds like a great idea. I'm just not going to say that Judaism teaches it, but that's fine. There's a lot of things I believe in that my Bible doesn't teach, but I like it. I mean, I enjoy my time in Amritsar, and I'm not saying that this is typically what Sikhs believes, but I've been to Langar and I eat it, like I'm a fan.
Yeah.
All right.
Tell me, just because one of my main reasons for coming on is to try and understand more, because of all of the faiths, Judaism probably the one that I know least about. I know that what do they call it? The three faiths: Judaism, Islam, and Christianity. They all say that they're linked. That is it? We're all the sons of David or something. I always heard that expression. I don't. Abraham, that's it. We're all yeah. So, I'd be interested in knowing, if you were to define how Judaism in itself differs from Islam and Christianity. What are the main tenets? What is the main? Ultimately, it's a monotheistic faith, which has but how does Judaism inform you? Because I think the point that you made is that ultimately it's here to inform you of an earthly way of living, and to kind of reach salvation through earthly deeds. In the same way, I guess, that Islam sort of preaches the same thing. They say that they have the good and the bad angel on their shoulder to account for their deeds in this lifetime. So how does that work in Judaism? What's the pathway to God, and what's the score system, let's call it that way, for an individual?
So the Torah, or Judaism, is not about keeping score. It's about God giving us a better way to live, essentially, so we can reap the rewards of ethical behavior, which he says is having rain in its season, peace, not being exiled, not being occupied. They're all practical rewards. It seems like the reward is bundled into the commands. If you work for 7 days straight and not rest, take a day off, you'll typically burn yourself out. They're pretty much consequential. Christianity and Islam differ via progressive revelation. They believe that although the initial message was great, they have a later message. God is in some way creating a theological fork in the road. And this is why they're essentially different religions. That's it. They popularized notions like heaven and hell that don't appear in the Jewish Bible, and made those the reasons to want to become or remain religious, which the Torah never brought those as reasons. Ethics came from the Torah, at least as the three major monotheistics are broken down, like three major monotheistic religions. They, i.e. Islam and Christianity, just brought narrative into the mix. Stories of people dying in your behalf, stories of messengers in some way giving you a new revelation. The Torah brought down the law. Individual moral training, that's how God wanted you to behave. That's it. So, yeah. Anyways, it's getting late. I mean, I'm not thinking too straight now. It's 1:30 here. But thank you for stopping by. Thank you, everybody who joined us. Consider becoming Jewish. It might be for you. It might not be for you. But like my friend said, don't stop thinking and don't stop questioning. And
always a consideration. I appreciate your time and I appreciate your input. And I'm going to give you a follow because, you know, as I said, part of my journey is to learn. I mean, as a Sikh, the word literally means to learn. So, you know, I always kind of I look for the similarities in religion. That's kind of what my sort of vibration, I think my journey is all about. I think that, you know, unfortunately in the world that we live in, we're always too ready to label ourselves and to actually point to the differences between faiths. But what we have a habit of instantly discounting is where they actually agree. The beauty and the symmetry of all religions ultimately is where they, you know, where they sort of coexist, where they overlap each other. That's the beauty of all of them, because it's on the points that we agree that make us all human, and that, you know, make us know that we're all on a journey to salvation, and that God loves all his children ultimately. But you've been brilliant, and you know, I'll give you a follow. And you know what, I'm just happy to learn, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to do that today.
Okay, thank you. Jai Hind.